All right, welcome back to the War Room. I am back here with the main men in charge, Carson and Alec. We are here to discuss what is basically the sport known as basically a violent symphony, if you will, where you have the ultimate combination of pure athletic ability and carnage with writing of when you just watch these guys on their own. It looks like poetry in motion, the ultimate combination of violence and gracefulness. It is Supercross. I would still argue the premier title of the SMX series, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Guys, how we feeling? You got the itches for A1?
Feeling good. Feeling itchy.
Oh, I can't believe it's here. It feels like it was just yesterday. We were wrapping up the last season.
For me, I've got the itch, bro. It feels like, what was it? Last race was in the last week of September. I feel like it's been a year. Like I've been sitting here itching, and I know that's not the case. I know that I was just sitting there watching the finale and watching, Chase get pummeled by a front wheel and sitting there in depression just about 2.5 months ago. But here we are. We're back, and it's time to get into this. So kind of a show layout for today. We're kind of go through 450s first, kind of go through our contenders, our wild cards, our best of the rest, whatever it is. Then we'll cover 250s. 250s will have a little bit more to talk about. We get into next week. We're still waiting on some of the people's coast lineups to come out. It's trickling out. We've got some news to talk about with that. But today we're going to be focusing on the Premier Class Championship as for 80% of the show. And trust me, there's a lot to talk about with that. So without further ado, Karsten, where are we starting here?
I mean, this is a deep class this year. Obviously we've got some guys coming out that are I would say a little bit ahead of the rest, but we've got new guys coming in and a lot of guys coming up that I think have a shot. We were talking just a little bit ago, and this, maybe the year that Malcolm gets a win.
We can't start the show with that, bro. You can't get my hopes up, bro.
Well, I'm just saying, there's light for some guys that haven't seen any in a while, and there's guys coming in that haven't even been here before. We got Jorge Prado coming into the league. Nobody knows where he's going to be at exactly. I mean, we don't know. We don't. And then obviously
and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And might I add to you, this is the first time in the season's history that in the Premier Class we have 5 returning champions. You got Jet, you got Jason Anderson, you got Eli Tomac, you got Cooper Webb, and you've got Chase Sexton. So the first time we have
Eli
5 championships.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Well, it was the same guys last year, except Jet was a rookie, so he didn't have a championship yet. So now you got 5.
Well, this is going to be interesting. Oh, that's true. And okay, yeah.
I had to listen to the Verbo Moto guys take 30 minutes to figure it out. They're like, I just can't figure out who did they add to go from 4 last year to 5. Jet was there last year. I was like, okay, we thought he was going to win it last year, but we did not give him a presumptuous trophy. He had to go earn it. That's how you got 5. Anyway,
yeah,
that was funny.
Well, I was just thinking because Eli wasn't there at the start last year, so I don't know if they were counting it like he wasn't.
Well, I mean, no, he was there. He just wasn't all the way back yet. It took him like a pretty much most of the season to start getting comfortable.
That's true. Maybe that was disrespectful of me to say. Okay, well,
you're the Tomac stand here, dude. You got a job to do.
All right. Well, yeah. Let's get started. So, who do you have at the top of this thing right now? Like, if we really had to break it down into a few guys that actually have a shot, because I think there's quite a few, but obviously there's only one that can take the title.
Yeah, and when it comes to contenders, like we talked about, there's 5 guys who have won a championship amongst this field, first time in the league's history. We have said this every year for the last 3 years that this is the deepest field yet, but this year we've raised the bar once again. But only 4 of those champions are on my contender list this year, and one of them is a wild card. We'll get into that later. But the 4 that I've got, Jet Lawrence, returning champ. Okay, second year in the 450 class, won it as a rookie, freaking nature athlete. Well, there's a lot to talk about with him. You got Chase Sexton, won it in 23. Lot of raw speed in 23. A lot more to dive in regards to his last season that we'll get into. Then you got Eli Tomac, 2-time champ, should have won it in 23. And honestly, with his dramatic injury in 2023 in Nashville, where he tore his Achilles on the night he was supposed to win it in his hometown, In a weird way, as fans, we've been blessed because if it weren't for that, he would have rode off into the sunset. We wouldn't have seen him again, right? I mean, he would have maybe done outdoors and motocross, maybe SMX, and then he's done. He is done. But instead, we've basically got him for an additional 3 more seasons since that. Sorry, 2 more seasons since that. And it's a blessing to have someone that talented that's still close to the top of his game in the picture. And then the last guy that basically I could make him a lock to win the championship if I simply didn't list him as a contender. Because when you count this guy out, you might as well hand him the championship because both the times he's won it, he's been on nobody's radar, and that would be Cooper Webb. So a lot to talk about with those 4. Comfortable diving in with any of them. There's a lot of material to talk about here. And then after that, we get our wild cards. So Carson, you have your pick of the litter here on my contenders list, and then we can argue about anyone else that needs to be in there later. But for now, who do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, I mean, we can get into some people that you left off there that maybe should have been, but that's okay. It's no big deal. You know, time will tell. Yeah, I would say give me the Chase case, okay? Because I think that if you were to take these 4 and say who would you drop off, not out of sheer speed, but just the Cowboys type curse going on that tends to be happening with Chase at times, I would leave him off. You know, it's like that he's supposed to win, and because of that, I see that a case where it doesn't work out. So let me know what your thoughts are there. Okay.
Well, I want everyone to know that when it comes to contenders, the guy that I love to pull for the most of the contenders, not throughout the whole field, because everyone knows me that's Malcolm Stewart, but favorite contender to pull for has been Chase Sexton for the last couple of years. So Alec, as soon as I get this out, I'm pivoting directly to you to kind of put our overall opinion kind of somewhere in the middle. Because I know with this particular rider, I have a certain amount of delusionalness, not Malcolm level delusionalness as far as my fanhood with that, but I know I'm more on the positive end here. But I'm going to kind of go through some important.
There is evidence for what you're saying on Chase, more so than Malcolm, for sure.
Correct. And you look at the list. I did not put Malcolm Stewart, despite evidence, not much, but evidence that there's potential.
Slim evidence.
He's not on the contender list, slim. Okay? Much as I want to speak into existence, he's not there. You need to be proud of me for that. Okay, but Chase Sexton, couple of key points here. A lot of people, unlike you, Carson, will consider him the first contender to Jet because he is in prime age. He's not like Tomac to where he could potentially be on a decline with his age. He is prime age right now. Credentials, 23 Supercross champion. In that year, you can make the argument he had the most raw speed. I mean, I watched the Houston heat race where he blew Tomac out of his boots. It was ridiculous. And then, of course, wasn't able to get it done in the main event, but whatever. But raw speed throughout the whole season, there wasn't a soul on the grid that could top him when he was on and on 2 wheels, more importantly. But got to keep that in mind. Yes, that championship was a little bit handed to him because of Tomac's injury, but he was there for all 17 rounds. You got to give that credit to him, and he was the fastest guy that year without question. He also won the motocross championship last year. It seems that outdoor setup on the bike really favored him pretty well. Looked a lot better in super motocross, though, when we got to those last 3 rounds. If it weren't for Justin Barcia literally landing on him and breaking his arm, we may have gotten to see some more signs of a direct battle between him and Jet that may have given us some more encouragement. But the raw speed he showed in motocross last year and beating Jet straight up a couple of times before Jet had his injury gave us some hope of more competitiveness when it comes to Jet specifically. Now, the main key point to look at with Chase Sexton that makes him kind of, I would argue he is, as far as the contenders, he's the biggest question mark here. He's a guy that, because of his raw talent, his raw speed, if he came out and won the first 4 in a row, you could say you're a little shocked, but if it was because he was just beating people with raw speed, you know, like Prime Ken Roxon coming out, freaking blitzcragging it, just completely leaving everybody in the dust in regards to the first 10 laps and then holding a gap, it would not surprise you because of the raw speed he has showed just over more than about a year and a half ago. But because of the fact that he battled that whole season last year with KTM and wasn't comfortable with the bike, said he was literally having almost, temper tantrums trying to get that thing under control this time last year. it seemed, and I say seemed, that he wasn't much of a title threat, even though he held the red plate at one point. But his main win was at a mud race early in the season, to where bike setup didn't matter that much, was just keeping it on two, and he got the whole shot. And then I'm pretty sure he won Salt Lake. But at that time, it was 17 rounds in. Whoop-de-doo, Jet was coasting. The main thing is, when you compare to what feedback he's giving you in all the preseason interviews and everything, he's not one of those riders that likes to just always say that he's flying the tech track and everything's great. I love my team. I love my bike. And then he's going to go out and get 12th place and then say, Anaheim won, my bike just sucked. No, he was sitting here at media day last year and go, hey, I love the team, but my bike sucks right now. Like, we are behind the eighth ball. He was scared. And going into the season this year, a lot more confidence with him. He seems a lot more comfortable. They may not be where they want to be all the way just yet, but he's not crapping bricks like he was last year. So if he is 50% better as far as his comfortability with that bike, I would say he's way more of a way better odds to see that 2023 Chase Sexton that just had that unbeatable raw speed, which is what he's going to need to take it to Jet Lawrence. And we all know he's at the top of this list. But here's the other thing. We all know he had his struggles last year. But if you were to look at these contenders, right, and anyone else on the grid last year, and you were to pick out one that was within 15 points of the championship last year, up until round 14, who would be the last on your list thinking about, like, replaying how the season played out? You would not guess it was Chase Sexton, but despite all the bike struggles, the not as much raw speed, not being at the time of qualifying charts, he was within 15 points of that championship come round 14. He was still realistically in the picture going into round 14 before he had that terrible crash and a bike failure the same night that Kenny broke his leg in the whoop section. So when you look at all of that, if we see the gains in regards to him and the bike that we think we could be seeing right now, it's a lot of upside for Chase Sexton. So now that I've given you now that I've just continued to just give you the propaganda per se, Alec, bring us back to level ground here. What is your thoughts on Chase Sexton? This is probably where we're going to spend the most time on in regards to the contenders.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I feel Chase Sexton is the question mark without the dot, right? Can he stay healthy? We know he has the speed. We've seen it. We can maybe skip a week and then week out, right? It's maybe some weeks more than others, especially in Supercross. Not so much in the outdoors because he's just a monster. But can he put the dot underneath the exclamation mark? It's kind of the question, right? Because you really need that to beat somebody like Jet or somebody. To even beat any of these contender guys from Webb to Tomac, you've got to have that edge. And that edge, I think, is the dot under the exclamation mark. That's the hole shots. That's the staying consistent, being there all 17 rounds, not missing the podium. And if you do, it's maybe a fourth and at worst a fifth. Just being the well-rounded guy, kind of like the shape of a dot.
No, 100% agree. And, I would say in regards to durability, he won the 2023 championship on pure durability. Like, his raw speed was there, but a lot of times his raw speed cost him race wins because he just kept pushing and pushing and trusting the bike more than he should have. But by God, we saw that dude get pummeled in ways that would have taken the best of contenders most of the time out for the season. The dude gets back up and still finishes the race top three. Absolutely. And you can make the argument that durability is what won that championship. The raw speed was there, but durability for 17 rounds, despite the crazy crashes that he's endured.
Oh, yeah.
You think about the crazy thing he dealt with Anaheim 1 that year. It was crazy. I think the biggest question mark is, does he get that raw speed back? Because last year we did like, in the retrospect, the fact that he was more consistent and the fact that he kept himself in play all the way till round 14, despite the fact that it was obvious he wasn't ever going to be in the top of the qualifying charts. He was not comfortable with his bike, having all kinds of setup issues. He was chasing. Pun not intended. But no pun. So Karsten, what are your thoughts on Chase here? Do you have more of the negative approach if he's going to be more of a top 5 guy and a podium threat, or is he the real second, contender, the challenger to Jet, if you will? Or are we going to go to pivot to these other guys as more of the true threat?
I don't know. I think the thing is, Jet has kind of shown that whenever he's out there to be able to win a championship, it's going to be a lot less of, waiting around for him to make a mistake for you to be able to win and you having to go and like take it from him.
Correct.
I don't think that someone being able to be, a little bit slower and consistent and then wait for Jet to make that mistake and then boom, you can get in there and get a few wins and get some points on him. I think it's got like more than ever, it's got to be you have to be the fastest guy and the most consistent guy. You can't just be one or the other,
Unless you're Cooper Webb, because he's just the anomaly. Because that dude found a way to take Tomac down to the wire in 23, despite him absolutely hating the KTM he was on that year and having to just jump through all of the whoops, couldn't skim anything for the most part. And last year, he stole Dallas right from underneath Jet nose. As a matter of fact, Dallas last year, I would say, was the only time we saw what would classify, with the exception of that mud race in round 2 or whatever, that we really saw some rookie mistakes from Jet. He threw that race away and had a shot at it and threw it away again, rushing a pass on the whoops and running into, was it Ferrandis or whatever? I forget what it was. It's very weird how the Cooper Webb formula translates regardless of who it is. And he's looking way better in the offseason this year than he was last year.
Yeah. So I think that, being that Webb has kind of mastered that strat, he's going to be sitting there running that game plan most likely the whole season. And so
Webb's career is that game plan. He's just a great defensive rider, and he's probably the best in the business. Best
mind games guy too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Chase is going to have to put the whole thing, it's going to have to be a complete season, the whole way around. If Jet wasn't in the picture, I think that Chase has probably a more handily way to win. He can go with, okay, as long as you're super consistent and you show up to every race, you might be able to drop back a little bit on the speed, or okay, maybe you're going to be the fastest guy, but you can lack a little consistency here and there and you'll be okay. Right now, I don't think that's the case. I think you got to be the most complete ever to get something done. So
no, I agree. I mean, he's
do I think he can do it? I don't know.
I think all rest on that Supercross suspension package, bro. I mean, the contrast between Chase Sexton and Jet Lawrence and what makes him great is Chase has that raw speed. And I would argue at times he has a raw speed that sometimes maybe even Jet can't tap into. But what it takes is a lot more things to fall into place, especially with the bike, to get there. Chase is a guy that has his style. He has his way of pushing the bike, and he has his way of getting that raw speed. He has to have a bike that can work with him on that. Whereas Jet, the reason he's such an anomaly, unlike anyone else on this list, and to a lesser extent Hunter, just because he doesn't have as much raw speed as Jet, but Hunter's the same. Both of those guys, both the Lawrence brothers, what makes them such an anomaly is that they're going to change their style to what the bike does well and to what it doesn't do well. They have that ability to just be so flexible with their riding style and getting raw speed in whatever way they can that they will conform themselves to whatever bike you give them and get the most out of it. And get the most out of themselves in that way. Whereas someone like Chase, the reason that he's having those troubles is he is chasing setup. He's going to chase setup until he feels like he can do what he wants to do with that bike. It's not the other way around. So that's what makes it to where when you come into a season, it's it really is rider and bike complexion per se. Is that the right word? I don't know. Rider and bike relationship dependent, in my opinion, because I don't think he's going to change his style. He's always going to try to change the bike. I don't blame him because that's what got him this far. He knows what he wants out of himself. Yeah.
So I mean, I'll be honest. You're kind of starting to convince me, okay, in this conversation. I'm not gonna lie. I think, you're definitely he's working. I'm seeing it. I can see how he might be, not he might be a contender. Obviously, Chase Sexton's a contender. But as far as
notes worked, we're good.
Moving higher up on the list.
Here. I convinced Carson on something. Excuse me. I need notes actually.
All right. Well, what do y'all thinking as far as like, okay, you're of these contenders, it would be assumed that sitting there is going to be the podium. Anaheim won. Okay. What do y'all thinking the podium looks like at A1 right now? Alec, what do you see here?
Came to me a little bit too early. Man,
I mean, that's a little loaded.
I think, yeah, I think that
I think we got some more
HRC
contenders to talk about
hooks
first, though.
up.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Alec.
I think that HRC Honda hooks up. I mean, they're great at the starts. Every time I've seen them in the past 2 years, they've been great at the starts, and that's huge in Supercross. So I think I would take Jet.
Well, I mean, I think it's a good segue. Let's talk about Jet because there are some I still think he's the most complete rider on this list, but he's got some small kinks in the armor that I think are important to point out so that we're not as shocked if something weird happens. So if you don't mind, Carson, let's talk about him. So he is without a doubt the title favorite. I think we can universally agree upon that. Is that correct, guys? Like Jet Lawrence, number one on this list?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And also the sky is blue and bears do poop in the woods. We've got that out of the way. We're all in a consensus there. So he is the title favorite. Last year won his rookie season, one of the few guys ever to do that. Now, we know he's a complete rider. We just talked about the fact that he is very adaptable to any bike that you give him. He has a weird way of winning to where it's almost like you can tell he's been coached in a certain way as if he was going to be at this point 8 years ago, to where he loves to lead races by maintaining a 3-second gap and just holding it. And the moment someone starts pushing, he'll push with him. He'll maintain that 3 seconds. He's not a guy like Stu or Ricky who just want to go 100% the whole time and win by 30 seconds, right?
Yeah,
and that's why.
Place.
Yeah, and that's why you don't see as many of the crazy crash outs as you would with someone like a Stu or a Ricky. I'm not even much a Ricky, but just mainly more like a Stu or someone else like that. Maybe a Ken Roxon when you go back to that crazy elbow injury. And that's what makes him such much of a complete rider. But the two things in regards to his bike that are important to know, you made a great comment earlier, Alec, on the starts. Honda as a whole, 450s, 250s, what was the one thing that we all knew about them last year? They were ripping starts. Freaking Chance Hymas was. Joe Shimoda could get a start. No, because he always got to suck for half a season and then insert himself. So he's the anomaly. Everyone else on a Honda was ripping starts, got whole shots at some point. Hunter, Jet, etc. It was, I mean, Steve Mathis has a joke that he's like Lars is in the pits with a whole shot button, just timing the gate for him. But the one thing is they did switch to ECUs. So now they're now using Get branded ECUs. Get is the name of the brand. I have to word that carefully because it's a little bit of a weird way to word it. That's the name of the brand is Get ECUs. They switched to that. They've got a guy named Toru who's kind of like their ECU and overall bike guru, if you will. So he will be doing his best while understanding the new ECU package and start mapping to go back to the Lars whole shot button, give him the automatic starts. But that could be a little bit of a door opening for the guys, particularly the Austrian group, to kind of insert themselves back and get some better starts because of the fact that the top dog may have a little bit more variability in how good they're coming off the gate. Because who was the group last year that sucked the most at starts? It was the Austrian group. The Yamahas could rip some. The Kawasaki's could rip some occasionally. I think the only time that we saw someone on the Austrian group rip a whole shot was when Chase Sexton perfectly timed that mud race jump. That's the only time. That was an act of God. Like, that was insane. The slow motion video of him getting that, I think, should be put in the Louvre or however you say that stupid French museum. The other thing is the word on the street right now is that the Supercross package for the 2025 Honda, so new bike for this year, is looking a little shaky. And when you take into the account that they pretty much have had a lot less time to test than they usually do because of the fact they had Motocross the Nations and then they did AUS-X Open on basically stock bikes. A lot less time to get your boot camp and preseason testing in. At the time they went to AUS-X Open about a month ago, they only had about 5 or 6 test rides on that bike. So a lot less time than what they'd usually have. Still plenty of time. But at the times that we're in the boot camp off-season eras, we're just getting word that they're behind the 8th ball and developing that package. So they could have it dialed in. They could be pulling a Lewis Hamilton and saying that Merck's cooked like they did in 2020 or 2019, and they go and win by 40 seconds? I don't know, but small kinks in the armor that may open the door and may give us some reasons not to be surprised if we see some variability with him.
Yeah, I think one, like I was saying about having to have a complete season for, somebody like Chase to get in there and win this thing. By the same token, by these other guys thinking that and now wrapping up every single loose end they possibly could, in their offseason regiment and everything as far as the whole team goes. Now, if Honda has, by having better guys, the whole thing gets elevated. So if Honda's got problems coming in, any kind of little thing like that, now they've kind of sort of made this bed they got to sleep in with the whole program being elevated. That if they've got issues, it's going to come to bite them because everybody else is seeing that they got to have everything so dialed in as well. So
no, without a doubt, right? And
yeah,
when you have these other two guys on our contender list that you would argue are in position to do even better than they were last year, I mean, it like I said, Carson, I'm convincing you the door's more and more open for other guys to come in. So we got to talk about these other two guys here. I've talked a little bit about them, but which one? We got Cooper Webb and Eli Tomac left to talk about for contenders. Who you picking first? Who we going into?
I want to hear from Alec. Alec, who do you like? Okay, you said I said the thing about the podium. You said Jet. Clearly, who's not on your podium?
You got to leave one of these four off. Yeah, it's a good conversation.
Cooper Webb.
Ooh. Okay, he's officially on the podium now. You counted him out. Sorry, I don't make the rules.
It's pretty cut and dry. I mean, Cooper Webb's a dog. Anybody will admit it who knows the sport. He's going to find a way to get it done, but he's going to get fourth place done. I just don't think he's going to. Maybe if I feel it's a lack of preparation, or if he's, I just feel like his dog's a little bit smaller. He may be a Shih Tzu.
Now, are we talking A1 or are we talking season right now? Are we talking
I was talking A1. But
okay. Then I
season
agree.
Season overall, Webb's going to be there. He's always there. I mean, he's got he might not have the raw speed, but he's got the consistency, and he's always just he's kind of like a booger, he just sticks around. Or I mean, he's just
that's such a good description of him.
As much as you want to pick on him, bro, he's gonna be there. And but I think he's just gonna be there. I think overall in the season he's gonna be a top 3 guy. But A1, I think he'll be just outside. He might be just outside the rim of the nose, maybe on the mustache.
Okay. And I will say this. I know on this show I tend to be the optimist for everyone but the guy that's at the top. But last year he was a guy that looked kind of out of shape at the offseason. He had a terrible Paris Supercross offseason race. Kind of looked uncomfortable on that Yamaha when he raced it in SMX. We thought he would be doing a lot better. And then he came out and he had a shot, I think, at a podium in A1 last year and just went down, but he still got 5th or something like that. I think that's how it played out. I'm trying to remember, but either way, getting a top 5 with how gloom and doom it looked for him at the start of last season was not on our card, but it's kind of he's in a similar position to Chase. He took Jet to tied in points with like 3 to go last year, despite coming in a little bit under the gun when it came to a new bike. And when you consider the fact that he just beat Jet in Paris Supercross. Now, granted, Jet won the first 2 races and then crashed in the last one. That's kind of what opened the door. But how many times has Cooper Webb won a championship doing that? That's what he did all the time to Ken Roczen, of putting that pressure from behind, staying within sight from where he can see you when he's doing a bowl turn and you go, oh, I got a guy on my 6. Like that's Cooper. So when we think about that, he's obviously in a much better spot with the bike with that new Yamaha this year than last year. So and when you combine the fact that he really is the ultimate gamer on this field, he has the best racecraft and race management of anybody. He's the best at applying pressure to anyone in the lead or anyone in front of him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him, quite frankly, anywhere in the top 5, but I would bet he's closer to that podium, even in A1.
That sounds like 4th place.
Okay, so then we have a difference of opinion on that. So that leads us to one other guy, and I'm interested to see where you would put him on the podium, because you've eliminated Cooper Webb. So that means we got a combination of Chase Sexton, Jet Lawrence, and Eli Tomac somewhere on that podium. And to talk about Eli Tomac real quick, a lot to like about this guy too. I mean, he's already just one of the most likable legends of the sport. When you talk about guys, a two-time champ, should be 3 if it weren't for an Achilles. Last year, he said he was really building back the whole year. He knew going into the season it was kind of be a build year for the most part, even though he wasn't telling anyone that because he hasn't talked to me that much. But the dude's fresh off of absolutely tearing it up at the WSX championship. Beating Ken Roxon way more times than not, even though Kenny did get him a couple times because it's Kenny. He's going to win at some point. Looked a lot better at Dallas, battling Jet Lawrence there for the SMX second round over there and was in the picture, even though he was recovering from that injury that took him out most of motocross. And he is a guy historically that takes till February to kind of get going. He's usually a slow starter. He pretty much had never. I don't think he had won Anaheim 1 until the 23 season, if I'm recalling correctly, because he was always told that he's always in a preseason slump. It's just wait for February, then you get the real Eli Tomac. And then 23, he just said, "Screw it, I'm going to rip out the first 4 rounds" or something like that. And I don't know what to think anymore. But typically, he's a late starter. We'll see what happens. But with Eli Tomac, I'm curious as to Alec, where would you put him for the season? But also, what about A1? Or let's answer that reverse. Where'd you put him at A1 in the war for the season? That's a better timeline.
Yeah. So I'm always rooting for Tomac. He's kind of the Dale Earnhardt of Supercross as of late. He's just an easy guy to cheer for. You'd love to see him win. And man, I think Tomac's got something to prove, right? He's the old guy of the class. Now is a better time more than ever to make a statement, is go out and take A1 and just pass. I really see Tomac passing Jet for the lead A1. So I got Tomac. I feel like it's going to be. I feel like Tomac's going to take A1.
Okay.
Now,
you heard it here
as
first.
overall in the season, I don't think Tomac, barring any catastrophic event or any injury, I think Tomac's. He's not going to win it, but I'm taking him. I'm taking him third. I think Chase has got second, but man, Tomac, he's experienced. I mean, like I said, barring any catastrophic injury, who's to say he's not going to have a season like 23 or 22 when he tore his Achilles? But that was 23. Yeah, 23.
Yeah, 23.
I mean, barring any, like I said, catastrophic event, I mean, Tomac is and has been that guy, before Jet showing up. But I mean, I think Tomac's he's got 10 years on Jet. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I think that's going to come into play later in the season if Tomac's speed can stay there. Now, I don't know how well Tomac's feeling or how comfortable he is on the bike because I'm not Tomac, but knowing and seeing what he could do, I feel like it wouldn't surprise me.
I don't think it surprised anyone to see any of the results that you listed of winning A1, but then kind of being off and on, but still in the championship picture, just not at the top of it, unless some stuff happens. Or it wouldn't surprise people to say, oh, wait, he's going to tap into some other godly level of 8th gear or something like that, because he's like, well, my name's Eli Tomac. I'm the last American Bulldog, as they call me. I'm one of the few guys that rides like I don't have to pay for the clutch. I'm just going to beat the piss out of it for 20 minutes straight and just rev the heck out of it. You can hear me coming from a mile down the straightaway. And I should have had this thing in 23. I was the oldest rider to win a Supercross championship. I, on paper, have nothing left to prove. So what am I here for? I'm here to just show everyone that I'm on my way out who Daddy is. And that's his whole MO right now. That's the only thing that could possibly be motivating him, because he's done everything else. He's second all-time in wins. He's got 2 championships indoors, I think 3 outdoors, I believe. He's been Captain America and won the nations. He's just a guy running off of probably some form of energy drink and a grudge. And I think that's what you're going to see out of him.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think he's going to come out hot, but I think the age is going to catch up to him a little bit towards the end of the season, and I think that there's going to be some. You're saying like, okay, barring any major injuries, he's going to do super well. But I think that he's at a place now where not minor injuries, but the smaller ones affect you more similarly to the big ones whenever you're 20 years old. So I think that he could totally have some stuff that comes up towards the end of the season, and he's just not able to go 100%. And like I said earlier, you got to be 100% to beat Chase and Jet right now. So I don't know. I think Eli comes out hot. I really like Alex take that he wins A1, but I think that he fills us out a little bit, and I think actually Webb ends up finishing better than him this season. On the season.
So do you think that kind of like, are you kind of on the assumption of what like the Jason Wygant's kind of view when it comes to these old veterans that are super talented that you would expect to be retired at 27, 28, like Ryan Villapoto, but they're here when they're in their early 30s and they're basically, hey, like they've got their once in a lifetime speed still, but only when the conditions are right. It's not going to be there every weekend, but when they're comfortable with the track, it's going to be there, and they're going to be there to win races. But there's going to be a good amount of rounds to where the bike's not feeling comfortable, that they don't like the track, whatever it is, and they're not going to have that extra gear to just overcome it anyways. They're going to be fine, or not be fine, but they're going to be a fourth regardless of what they do. Is that kind of where you put Tomac?
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about these guys going out there and, for the most part, like risking their lives week in and week out. And I think that once you get to your late 20s, there's just no, like, you become a lot more sensible, Like, I think he's probably got a lot more sense in him than he did 3, 4, 5 years ago to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't go for the quad today, And, like, to win, you kind of have to every lap right now. And so,
Very true.
he gets to the end of the season and he's like, hey, I'm sitting here in third. Maybe I push and something happens to Jet and he goes down or whatever, and now I catch back up. But I don't know. I think he's got the dog in him, but I think he's also got some.
He's got the dog on a leash.
Practical. Yeah. He's also got the wife and the kid,
That's
and
the leash.
yeah, and nothing against the wife and the kid. I think it's a longevity thing. I just don't see him. I don't know. I don't see him pushing the full way through the season like he would have to win the championship.
I mean, I think a perfect summary of what you just described is go back last year. Sorry, 2 years ago. Now we're in 25. Go back to 2023, first round of the SMX. Last round of the Coliseum, the 450s, what happened? Okay. You had Chase leading by like 5 seconds. Jet didn't have anything for him, but then Chase did what last year Honda Chase did and crash out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I only cried a little bit. It's fine. I'm fine. And then Jet had a good lead. Okay. Kenny is right there. It looks like it was winner take all between Jet and Kenny for the most part. Actually, he needed one person to pass Jet. But for the race, Kenny was in play and somewhat in play for the championship. And they were really, really close. They were within a second of each other. And then what happens? Jet busts out that quad onto the tabletop and then doubling from there, tripling out. He does that for 5 laps, builds up like a 6-7 second gap, and then Kenny finally does it, but it's too late. And go to the interviews after post-race, Kenny was like, look, I'm older now. His direct quote was, I've got to think about that stuff a little bit more now. I'm not like I used to be. I'm not as I used to be. Like, this is a guy that almost lost his career off of a 450 crash that required all kinds of like crazy surgeries.
Yeah.
So he thinks about this stuff a little bit more now in his later age. And Tomac is kind of similar. Hasn't had the traumatic injuries like Roxon has, but he's kind of in that same position where he may do that stuff. He just thinks about it a little more, and that could be enough time for someone else to use that to their advantage.
Yeah, there's a little more on his mind. Jet's got one thing. He doesn't have a championship last year. He'll do whatever he needs to.
No kids.
No wife.
That we know
no
of.
kids. Hey,
He's got a girl though.
Yeah.
That TikTok girl.
So
Wait. Jess dating a TikTok girl?
Yeah, I forget her. My sister knows her, or knows of her TikTok, but she was there at the Vegas race. Like Jet was on the bike right outside the van, and she was just like standing right next to Jet, showing him videos and shit on her phone.
Look, that's nowhere on my notes. No one told me about this. If someone had told me about that, he would have been out of the contenders list. Okay, if you're dating a TikTok girl, your mind's somewhere else. He's not focused. He's not ready. Sorry, Jet Lawrence is losing. I'm sorry. You can't be dating. No, you can't be dating.
Dude, I don't know her name, but she's a brown-haired girl. I mean, I just saw her from maybe 50 feet. Like I didn't.
His head's not in the right
I don't know
space.
who
Sorry,
she
he's
is.
out of
I
it.
don't
Moving
know,
on.
But
that's too funny.
Okay. Well, do we have any closing thoughts on the contenders here?
I don't know. I think we're on similar page across the board on these guys. I think I might have. I don't know.
I think I've become a bigger Tomac fan than you, Karsten. What's going on here?
Listen, similar things happen to me. Okay, turned 25. I'm getting a little older. All right. The risk isn't worth the reward anymore. Okay, I'm playing it safe. Okay, he's. I don't know. I'm not hopping ship necessarily, but we're. I don't know. We're being a little practical here. Okay, I'm just being practical. By practical, I would say I think that something unpractical going on is that Hunter Lawrence didn't make the contenders.
I knew that was coming.
I feel like he should have been up there, but you've got him listed in your wild cards. Let's get into those. He's the first one on the list.
Yep.
Where he should be, I would say. I think that I don't know. The only thing he was lacking to me through the motocross season, because he started to get more comfortable on the 450. The only thing he was lacking was a little bit of endurance, right? He's had some stuff going on. He's working on it. Assuming he's got that sorted, to me, I don't see a world where he's not right there with Jet, because at the beginning of the race, he could pull the whole shot. I mean, Jet was pulling the whole shot. He's right there next to him, but he's right there with him. He's got the speed. He's got the lines. He's got the consistency. But it was just the endurance, it seemed like. And so, I don't know. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
Alec, I'll have you take the first swing at this one because I think I don't know which direction I want to go. Maybe you can help me out.
Yeah.
I've got some information, but
the last I saw Hunter was outdoors, and the times where he was leading, maybe it was the fatigue because it was later in the races, but I'm seeing swaps up the faces. I'm seeing hands blown off on the throttle hand, and a lot of that too. You got to account for arm pump and just getting tired and making those mistakes. So I totally agree with you. I think I don't think it's a lack of skill or a lack of effort or a lack of anything other than endurance. Now, I think if he can lock in endurance and ride at like 100 BPM heart rate, I mean, I think he's just as good as his brother. It always feels like sometimes the moments are a little bit, I wouldn't say too big, but bigger than himself. And he feels that way when he's riding. Like for Jet, there's not a moment big enough. But for Hunter, if the moment's too big, it's the last lap on at Unadilla, and it's getting choppy downhill, and Hunter's hand comes off the throttle and he swaps off into the banners. It's like I feel more of that from Hunter, at least last year. Now, if he worked on what I saw to be endurance or just maybe I would say lack of strength, but those late laps and especially in moto, without endurance, it gets real hard to hold on the bike. So, given that he's figured that out, I've got him above Cooper Webb.
Okay. That I didn't expect that sentence to come out. I can already figure out who's some people's sell pick is gonna be when we get to that segment, but. Yeah, with Hunter Lawrence, I can be persuaded to go either way. So I'll kind of give a negative case and a positive case. Look, the negatives going into the season for Hunter are clear. You haven't won a Supercross race yet. You don't have as much data that is meaningful from the first half of your season last year because it was so chaotic. It was your rookie season for any 450, much less Supercross, right? You didn't even make the main event at ANAHEIM 1 because of some freak accidents in the heat race. You got put in LCQ, and you had a bad start in LCQ. You missed the main event. It wasn't really your fault because, well, Vince Freese. But look, that's just the reality of the situation. Because of that, you don't have a lot of the data from that first part of the season. Now he kept building, but for the majority of that season, he was a 5 to 10 guy, not a 1 to 5 guy. Motocross, he turned a quarter. It was great, and then you see him you see him win some races, not overalls, but he won a good amount of races in motocross. And then in SMX, you see him finally get his first overall at Dallas. Carson and I were there for that, sweating our butts off. It was great. Aside from the fact that the lines to get beers were literally a mile long and they took forever, and I couldn't even get water without waiting for an hour. So you had a bunch of rednecks unhappy they couldn't get beer, and we had me over there just dying for water. It was ridiculous. Yeah,
I can't imagine. Yeah, I can imagine whenever NASCAR comes to town, they've got the beer operation set up the same way as that. They need to call up some other people for however they take care of it. I don't know what was going on. It literally took 45 minutes. I'm still pissed. I mean, it was. Yeah,
dude, like water. Like I was this close to just drinking the water from the bottom of the cooler. Like anywho, that was a mess. The point is,
I'm thirsty just thinking about it.
Bro, I may have to go and just get a drink of water right now just because of that. Because I mean, bro, the tangent here. Sorry, this is your fault. Even though it's mine, I'm just gonna say it's your fault. The one positive about completely just being roasted out there in the Texas heat at that Dallas SMX race and just, I mean, sweating through multiple shirts. If I would have been wearing multiple shirts, it would have been better. Was I ate some junk food that race, but I kid you not, when I got home that night and weighed myself, we were at net zero, baby, because whatever I ate, I sweat it right off. So it was nice.
Oh, yeah.
The grease from the hot dog just went.
Bro, I ate some junk food there. I did not pay a dime for it as regards to the weight scale, baby. It was nice. Didn't even have to do cardio when I got back. It was nice. Anywho, but yeah, the encouraging thing with Hunter is, look, you have at least had one weekend as a 450 racer now that you can say, I put it all together and I got an overall. You even won some races in motocross, but you haven't done that in Supercross yet. And he didn't look that great in the Paris Supercross. I know Paris Supercross can a lot of times be, deceiving. We have some guys that look great that aren't there. We have some guys that look meh look being meh. We have some guys that look terrible that are terrible. We don't know what to think there. We have some guys that look all-stars that are whatever. But both he and Jet were still fast, but just uncomfortable there. So we know that there's some delay in getting right with that bike. But I think he's another. I really do think he is the biggest wild card of the wild cards here, because he's not old like a veteran, but he's a little bit older than a Chase and a Jet. But yet he still has that room to grow. He's in that weird spot between someone like a Jason Anderson and a Cooper Webb, to where we kind of know what we're going to get from those guys. Same with the Tomac for the most part. But yet he still has a little bit of that upside to where we don't know if he can. We think he has another gear. We don't know if he can tap into it yet. So he's the most interesting person on this list, in my opinion, in regards to like a borderline contender, because of everything I just said. Like it's like some other guys in the contenders, you would believe just as much of one thing as they would another. He's kind of at a tipping point. I would like to think it would go more the positive direction, but because of how deep this field is, he's got an uphill battle to make those big gains to be a consistent podium and title guy. So it's for that reason I think he wins races, and I do mean races plural. I think he gets 2 to 3 wins potentially. I would kind of more predict 2, but I don't think he's consistently on the podium, and that would take him out of the championship right there.
That's big, 2 to 3 wins. Okay, so Cole, let me ask you this: on this wild card list.
Okay, yep.
If you had to give me, in the wild card list, I'll just give it out here. So
Yep.
everybody knows who we're kind of talking about right now. We got Hunter, Kenny, AP,
Yep.
Jason Anderson, Malcolm, Barsha, Justin Cooper, and Jorge Prado.
Yep.
Okay. Which Jorge Prado, I would argue, you could go anywhere with that guy. I mean, we just don't know what we're going to get.
Anywhere but champion, but we'll have that conversation later. That's my controversial take.
So if you've got 3 guys on this list that you had to pick 3 guys that you think are going to get a win this year.
Okay.
Okay. We already know you're going to say Malcolm.
Nope.
I am.
I'm going to pray for
really?
it. I'm going to pray for it. As the wise man Chris Gabby once told me, the heart is a great servant, but a terrible master. So I can't let my heart vote on this one for the sake of my sanity.
Okay.
And also my accountability here and my record as a host of this show. I can't do that as much as I want it to happen. So no, he's not on my list.
Okay, so give me your 3 that you could see. Okay, I think these 3 are winning a race this year, and maybe not all 3, but one of them's got to hit.
Yeah, 100% Ken Roxon. He would be at the top because of the fact when the track's comfortable for him, if he pulls a hole shot, he's got the ability to just blitz. It's fitting. He's German. You can say, go ahead, go full blitz, Greg. I think I did that earlier. He can go full blitz, build a 10-second gap in less than 2 laps, and just pray it holds. And that can get him a win. And he can do that on multiple tracks. He was one of the few guys that was going back and forth through that Triple Crown last year and was leading Jet multiple times, pulled multiple starts, was battling with him, was really the only guy that night that battled with Jet consistently. So Kenny, definitely a winner. Hunter, I would say you got to put him there too. He has to have a couple things go his way. He's got to be more consistent. He's got to put himself in position to even contend for wins in general, much less a championship. But I think he has the talent to at least be there and potentially win 1 or 2 of these things. The 3 is if everything goes perfect for him. I think that's his absolute ceiling. That's why he's not a contender, but I think that's his ceiling, which is a huge step for him. But I definitely think he could win 1. Now, the third guy is hard because you have Aaron Plessinger, who finally proved it last year that he could. And that was an awesome moment, especially the fact that it was – I don't know why this scene's not memed more, but the fact that you can go to that slow-mo where, like, AP's doing some kind of weird, like, flappy dance or whatever. And in the back, you have Jet and Jason Anderson, like, hooking each other's, like, helmets and screaming at each other. And Jet's about to cry. It was hilarious. Like, yeah, that was an awesome moment last year. But you got Jason Anderson here. And he's another guy that I'm leaning towards the negative because the last 2 seasons haven't gone his way. And he's a guy that it's a make or break year for him. He's got to prove he can be a race winning potential again. That means win. Or you're most likely going to see him lose a factory ride. You've got Levi Kitchen coming down the pipeline. Cowie may actually want to go after Chase Sexton next year if he wants to leave KTM. That's a possibility. Slim, I think. But if anyone's going to try to poach Sexton from KTM, if it doesn't go his way this year and he wants to leave, Kawasaki is kind of the front runner. Yamaha is kind of locked up. So, but so many other guys on contract years, I'm going to put Jason Anderson out of it in place of AP. AP looked a lot more consistent outdoors, was consistently on the podium. I think AP will be a consistent top 5 guy. And a lot of times just being that consistent thorn in people's sides for the front runners or the contenders that we just talked about. Maybe not like a Ken Roxon, who every once in a while is, way out front and fighting for the win. And then some weekends he's 7th or 6th. But kind of being that consistent, he's always in that top 5, more like 4th or 5th. As we've seen with other people, that can open your door to at least get opportunities to win. And I know I'm delusional and I'm a diehard for this guy, but that's what we saw with Malcolm Stewart in 2022, right? He was a guy that was a top 5 machine. And in Dallas, somewhat in Daytona before he got in beef with Jason Anderson, and a couple other races, he was in position to win because he was consistent and stuff in front of him happened, right? And actually, both of the times that I recall that he was in position to win, Jason Anderson took him out. That may be why I have more of a negative view on Jason Anderson, even though I kind of like the guy. But, bro, he took out Mookie in Dallas, and I still haven't forgiven him for that. that was just egregious. He launched Mookie, and then Mookie pushed him down, but Mookie was leading the Triple Crown, and despite getting completely just blown out of the water by Jason Anderson just being on crack and cleaning him out in a bull turn before like the second or third turn on lap 3, he still got 5th overall in the Triple Crown. That's how good of a night Mookie was having. So it's fine. I'm fine. I'm totally over it. It's not like that was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Malcolm to get that one win. I'm fine. But, yeah, that's my 3. I know it wasn't brief. I need to be more brief about this stuff. Got Hunter Lawrence, Aaron Plessinger, and Ken Roczen.
I like that. Alec, what do you got?
Man, I think I'm going to leave AP off this list. I've got Hunter, Kenny, and Anderson. Look, I can't remember if it was 23 or 22, but Anderson won 6 straight right at the end of the season. This guy, I mean, he can win races. Now, I mean, his kid's a year old. He's not stressing over it where we saw last year he'd bow out of a race after a bad start because he wanted to go hang out with his kid, right? It was totally understandable. But, I mean, now his kid's a year old. I think maybe that a little bit more motivation there for who knows how long for Anderson. But to keep it brief, I've only seen AP win 1 race in the Premier class in Supercross. As much as I've rooted for him and would love to see him win, I've also seen him lose it more times than I've seen him win it.
Detroit 2023, it's okay.
I hope the pattern doesn't continue because I love AP.
Yeah.
But with, like you said, Cole, just going with my brain here is instead of my heart, I got to keep AP off the list as much as it hurts.
But here's the curveball, bro. Who's won a race more recently between those two? The answer is AP. And of when it happened, AP did it with a more stacked field. In theory, 2022 was a lighter field because of a lot of injuries than what we had last season, and AP did it early. So that's the head scratcher. Is it's not so much that AP did good in a stacked field. It's he's been on a slump for the last 2 years. Now, apparently, contract year Jason Anderson is something different. So maybe we'll see a resurgence. I've been hearing that he has been flying at the test track, but that's in comparison to Jorge Prado. So I don't know what to think about that. And usually Jason Anderson is a great test track rider. So really that statement in itself is worthless, but at least we're not hearing that him and Jorge Prado, a guy who has not ridden Supercross with the exception of 4 races last year to give it a try and was lapped at one point, won a heat race, but he was up and down. He's like a top 10 guy. At least he's not even keel with that guy. If that was the case, and I'd be taking Jason Anderson off the wild card, and I'd be putting him with the best of the rest on this list. So he's another one of those guys that
we'll see.
Go either way.
I'm not gonna. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. I've gone back and forth between thinking that this list of 3 is an easy one to come up with and thinking it's actually really hard. I think Hunter Lawrence is obvious, but the other 2 are so not. Like you make a super good point, Cole, that like most recently it's been AP that's won a race out of any of these guys, actually any of them. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, if it's the right day, like you could totally see somebody like Jason Anderson getting up there and getting a win. Or, at some point we got to imagine that Justin Cooper is going to get a win, right? I don't know if it's going to be this year. He might need to become a little bit more of a podium guy.
I think
first.
motocross, absolutely. He's in play.
Yeah.
Even with the stack field we're going to have for that. But
Supercross, I mean, it just all depends. And the thing is, a race like an A1, it's kind of one of those ones where it does not go the way that you'd expect it to. Somebody might come out and just rip, or you get a good mud race and someone gets a whole shot. Like, I don't know. I'm going to have to go Hunter, AP, and I'm going to say, I'm just throwing one out there.
No.
Just for fun, because somebody has to.
Oh, no. I know who you're going to say.
I'm putting Jorge Prado on the list.
Oh my word! Oh, okay, I thought you were going to say Justin Barsha.
No,
Somehow
I was
somehow that's less
thinking that.
delusional.
I think Barsha's on a little bit of a victory lap, kind of cruise mode. He hasn't had the most outstanding career, but he's had a good career. He's been able to ride his dirt bike and collect a paycheck, and ride well
Pretty
and
healthy
get some
paycheck.
and get some wins in there and have a great time. I think that his potential for a championship might be past him at this point. So I don't know if I could pick Barsha truly, but Jorge Prado, I think, we don't know. So it's a wild card. In the spirit of the wild card, I'm adding him to mine. I'm taking him.
Well, you make a good point, Karsten, in the fact that a lot of people, including yourself, think that this is going to be a sunset year for Justin Barsha. Last year of his contract with Gas. The Austrian group may look to downsize even further due to some bankruptcy issues. Hopefully things will look better on that end, but it looks like they're going to be under new management. That's a whole different story. Okay, but right now they're racing. They've downsized a little bit, mainly in their 250 program, but we'll see what happens from there. But I think your biggest variable of these wild cards actually isn't the Kenny, not the Jason Anderson. I wouldn't even say it's a Justin Cooper. I think Justin Cooper is going to be a quiet guy. He's being slept on. He'll have a shot at getting a podium every now and then when the conditions are right. But he's a guy that has to have the starts go right. He's the guy that's got to be better at Supercross in general. He needs a couple more things to go in his way. Okay. I think your biggest wild card of the wild cards, especially when it comes to looking at the positive end, is the Baker's Factory guys. And that would be your AP, your Malcolm, and your Justin Barsha. The reason why a lot of guys are not even considering these guys as race winning potential, even though one of them has, right? Well, actually, both of them have won races. Justin Barsha, he's one of my sleeper picks to win Anaheim 1, because who's the only guy on this list that has come out and won Anaheim 1 3 years in a row? That's Justin Barsha. Okay. 2019 through 2022. Sorry, 2020 through 2022, I believe. He won Anaheim 1 3 years in a row. That's incredible. And he has these races where he can pull something out of his rear end and just be phenomenal. And then he has races where he goes full like Vietnam War flashback crazy dude or whatever and just T-bones one of the Lawrences for no reason. Or Malcolm Stewart. It's fine, I'm fine. But the point is, when you look at these guys, what do they all have in common? They race at the Baker's Factory, right? Justin Barsha had his own private compound, had his own, like he was an Eli Tomac situation, had his own training staff or whatever, his own little deal. He and Troy Lee just having tea on the side of the track. Well, he was chilling, happy, getting paid. He's made his money. He's won races. He's done everything but win a championship, but he's certified himself as kind of somewhat of a legend, right? This is the last contract year. A lot of guys on a contract year. You got some talent coming down the pipeline. This could be a sunset year for him to where he hangs it up at the end of the year. He's in his early 30s. This is kind of scripted for him to put himself out of the picture and just enjoy the factory ride, cruise, see what comes on your table. But the guy goes out of his way to opt into training at Baker's Factory, a very hardcore program that is very routine. We all do this together. We all train together. We are all pushing each other with AP and Malcolm. So what does that tell you? All three of these guys, AP, Malcolm Stewart, Justin Barsha, this is their statement of saying, we don't think we're done yet. Now, look, that's what they're thinking. That's what's driving them. But especially Justin Barsha, you're not looking to just right off into the sunset if you go from your own private setup where you're your own boss to then going into Alden Baker's program, doing full boot camp, right? He is trying to sell himself a factory ride in 2026, whether that's staying with Gas or not. This decision shows you exactly where his heart is at. He's going to do his best to win a race, if not multiple, and at least be a top 5 guy. I think he really needs to prove he can win at least one race to have a factory ride next year. And Malcolm Stewart in a recent interview, when asked what the one thing he wanted to, kind of be a statement sentence for this upcoming season, he said, I want to, he just said, I'm not done yet. That's his thing. And Carson, we'll get to the point where you let me kind of be my delusional Malcolm Stewart fan. I'm not going to check out of that. I think Malcolm, of the three, is the least likely to win a race, but has that. I think he has the most top end speed of all these guys when the cards are in his favor. AP has proven he can do it and is the most consistent of all three of these guys. They all have their own attributes, but the commonality between all three of these guys is that they all believe they're not done yet, despite the door being a little bit open for them to sunset off and kind of just take their place amongst the vets. Go be a privateer guy for another year or two and then sayonara. But no, they don't want that. So whenever you give me permission to give my Malcolm Stewart propaganda, I am ready. But that as much as I'm going to give you right now.
No, yeah, I think might need to get into that and see what you got to say. I don't think you're totally wrong about that. I do think that there's some potential there, that they all are coming in saying, okay, yeah, let's not take it easy. Let's not go light. Let's either go out with a bang or, it's like 50 Cent said, get rich or die trying, right? And they're going to die trying. So
Justin Marshall will absolutely die trying. The other two yet to be Aaron Plessinger almost died trying in Detroit. Malcolm, actually, all three of them will die trying.
Yeah.
I thought back to A1 of 23 for a second. I was like, oh, yeah, no, he tried. He almost died trying. Okay, so Karsten,
the Malcolm Stewart propaganda.
Can I go off the leash? Can I go off the deep end? Okay.
Sure. All right. Let's hear it.
All right. So, look, boys, as a Malcolm Stewart diehard fan, the last 2 seasons have been nothing but a high dose of copium and hopium. Okay. It's been tough. Okay. 2023, he's all out of it despite having a shot at winning A1. He doesn't make it to round 3 because he has a really, really bad accident. Literally tore every ligament in his knee, misses the remainder of the year, comes back next year, gets Vince Freezed opening round. He literally can't. He and Christian Craig can't stay off the ground because of Vince Freeze terrorism for the first 2 rounds. It's just insane, and really just all kinds of crazy accidents. Like the Husqvarna group in general. I don't know how Dave Ramsey stayed out of the psych ward, because that dude literally had to watch every round for the first 4 or 5 rounds. Christian Craig and Malcolm Stewart end up on the ground some way, somehow, whether it was their fault or not. The majority of the time, not, for 5 straight rounds. They had no momentum for Supercross. And they were also behind the 8th ball on the test track, too. Malcolm Stewart was the one hyped up by Christian Craig and RJ Hampshire and Aaron Plessinger as, oh, my gosh, he's flying at the test track. He's looking really, really fast. The sources were the guys riding with him. That's Aaron Plessinger. That was Christian Craig. That was RJ Hampshire, etc. They were saying that guy's the fastest. He's going to be great. He should win Anaheim 1. Direct quote from Christian Craig, apparently. The problem is he's the fastest amongst your group. That whole group was behind the 8th ball going into the start of the season. That's what we found out was, okay, Malcolm may have the most raw speed of that group, but it was a low standard because of the fact that whole team, that whole group last season struggled with all of that. Now this year, another important thing to factor in was Malcolm looked a lot better in motocross. He looked to finally kind of get in a groove, got a top 5, but was a consistent 7 to 5 guy in motocross. Looked okay in SMX. Had a run with Phil Nicoletti that kind of ended his run of being in the top 5 in SMX. So that kind of sucked. But other than that, he looked a lot more consistent, had some more raw speed, and now he's coming off a fresh offseason race in which I think he got 3rd or 2nd at Paris Supercross. I'm going to go with 3rd. But the more important thing was it looked like more of that raw speed was finally back. And Malcolm has been quoted many times as saying that he, from his own feeling of his body, recovering from tearing everything in that knee 2 years ago, going into season last year, even though he was the fastest guy at the track, he felt that the guys around him were delusional and that it was going to be a building year no matter what for him. And that's kind of what we saw. He said he really didn't find his groove until he got through motocross, surprisingly. That wasn't anyone's bingo card. We thought it was going to be maybe an 11th or 12th guy. Instead, he was more towards the front of the field. And he just said, he's like, look, a lot of people expect you to come back more how you would from an ACL. It's gone down to a science. They've got ACL surgeries to where, yeah, you're probably out for 6 to 9 months. But when you get back, we've got it dialed to where you can 100% be like your old self within that exact 6 to 9 months, whenever you're finally When you are deemed you're good, you're good. And he's like, no, I tore way more than that. It took me so much more time to get back to anywhere near what I was in 22 and 23. And he's like, it just took way longer than expected. So my propaganda is, look, I think 23 was unfortunately, I think that may be in his only window for potentially winning a championship, because you had that raw speed still, and you had that consistency, and he was only 30 or 31 at the time. It was kind of like his last chance to even make a hunt at getting back to the top 3 in the championship again, like he did in 2022. I think a consistent winning threat is gone, but I'm a lot more encouraged with the fact that I think he did need most of last year, similar to Tomac with that Achilles, to build. And you look at that Paris Supercross race, he looks to have more of that raw speed back. You saw him build throughout the motocross season. I think they've made some improvements to the bikes too. The main thing with the Husqvarna and the Austrian in general was his struggle with the whoops. And look, you got Tom Vial on an Austrian bike that's able to just win an East Coast Supercross championship last year by just going 3-3-3 in the whoops the whole time. I mean, like, that's an argument for a different time, but the way they're doing whoop sections right now and no dragons backs, that could help him out. Even though that's one of Malcolm's strengths, at least it won't be a weakness on this bike. So we'll see how it plays out. But a lot more encouraging results on the back half of this last year, especially that Paris Supercross. That's a big deal for him. That gives him some more confidence that he can run up front with the Jets, the Cooper Webbs, etc. I think the main thing for him, honestly, to be a consistent, like, 5 through 7 guy, which is kind of what I'm hoping he'll be. And then maybe towards the end of the season progress towards a guy who can maybe be in a podium picture and maybe be like old Mookie, to where he's going to have some blazing heat races, maybe occasionally be at the top of the qualifying chart. If he's going to capitalize on any of that, he has to be a better starter. And the Austrian group in general last year sucked at starts. They were terrible at starts. Their ECU mapping was terrible. I'm sorry, their power mapping was terrible. I don't think their ECU package was great. They were the farthest gap from Honda as far as starts go than any other team, in my opinion. The only guy that consistently got at least okay starts and occasionally some good starts of the entire Austrian group in the 450s last year was Aaron Plessinger. I don't know how that happened. It might have just been because he was doing it for Dale. That's the only explanation I have, because there's nothing else on paper to point to why Aaron Plessinger got starts last year occasionally, but that's the stats are the stats, right? So that's the big thing with Malcolm, is he has to get starts figured out for this season. Same with Chase. Different things both those guys are playing for. One fighting for relevancy, the other a championship, but they both have to figure the same thing out. When Malcolm finally figured it out in 2022 and finished 3rd in the championship, it was because of the fact that it might have been 2nd in the championship. I forget. His 2022 year was phenomenal. The reason that is he was a consistent top 5 guy because he started in the top 10 every single time, more likely the top 5. He finally figured out starts, and then it's gone away. So got to figure out starts, stay in at all 17 rounds, get that raw speed back, and then you have a Malcolm Stewart that's more closer to 2022. I don't think you're going to get there, but as we see with all these veterans, they can pull up that raw speed one night. He just needs one win to just make the whole stadium come down. That's all. That's all the people want. We got
it's that easy.
Win. Yeah, AP's got that one win, and we all went crazy. Okay, if Malcolm Stewart gets a win, it'll be the same. Like we'll go absolutely crazy. The stadium will be going absolutely berserk, and I may spontaneously combust. Like I may just like evaporate. I don't know. I may like Obi-Wan Kenobi Force Ghost out of here. I don't know what's going to happen. But
Cole, I want to add to add to what you said, or something that I felt like you missed was Malcolm. We saw him do great in the outdoors. I mean, for what we expected, right? He hadn't raced outdoors in 10 years. I think. Yeah. So like he did great. I mean, way better than I would have ever expected him to do. And maybe I'm feeding into the disillusion here, but I love Mookie, bro. Like I want him to win. Like
it's my guy.
That's Allie, my girl's her favorite rider is Mookie, and
she's based.
Yeah. So I'm cheering for him. I want it just as probably not as bad as he does, but I want it bad. I want to see him. I want to see him pull it through and make it happen.
Yeah, I think Well, unfortunately, every season it's like, damn, this is like it seems like it's an even harder year for somebody to get just
Mhm.
one win. It's
Mhm.
like, gosh almighty. Because then you go to next year and maybe, we can talk about the 250s in a little bit, but maybe Deegan ends up coming into the 450 class next year. It's like, okay, now it just got even harder. And just more guys start coming up that are really fast. And as he keeps getting older, it's like he's got to get it done. This might be
I
the
also
This
one.
think it's
year,
harder
this is the
because
year he
I
has
think
to.
the
Yeah.
track design also doesn't play any favors to him. I know that Husqvarna isn't the best bike through the whoops, but Malcolm could still make it work to where he could pass in them, right? But we've argued about, well, not argued about this. We've all been in agreement. It sucks that they're sticking to this 9 whoop thing. I like if you just go one more and go to 10, it solves the problem because you have
Yeah.
guys that
You
don't
can't
have talent
breathe.
to skim the whoops that is just as fast to go 333. You have I'd rather see 8 or 10, anything but 9. I don't want to watch 333 be just as fast as blitzing the whoops, which takes skill and is the whole point of Supercross anymore. I don't want to see that level. Like Tom VL should not have been able to skim go 333 in every single whoop section for the back half of last year and walk his way into a Supercross championship. But that's the reality of the story. So for as long as that's the case, that's one less weapon that Malcolm that has that is his leg up on a lot of other people. Even with a bike that isn't the best of the whoops, he can still make it work. So that's another thing working against him is unfortunately because of the whoops being not eliminated, but being a little bit degraded as a passing section because of the 333, the 9 whoop thing. And you got guys that are able to just kind of not have to worry about skimming the whoops anymore and being fast there. That's a big separator of the field right there that has now been leveled. And it is now starting to be a little bit harder to work your way through the field, right? That's how someone like a Ken Roxon last year gets a bad start, comes out 14th or something like that, and unlike Kenny of old, isn't in 5th by the end of the first or second lap. Like that's the problem. You can like it's not as like I'm not on the full end of Steve Mathis to where it's like, oh, it's just become start cross now. Like you have to get a start or you're done. No, we've seen some charges through the field last year, but they were just way less often than not. And that's, like I said, that's what's working against some of these guys. It's not just the fact that it's a deep field. You got guys on here that some of their liabilities are no longer exposed because of the current track design with only 9 whoops in every whoop section and no dragons backs. Like
I'm all
and like I
for
said, I disagree
taking
with that.
the dragons back out. I mean, I think they're super sick, but I think they're really unsafe. But I also, what Christian Craig said 2 years ago and held some weight, where he said I could ride 60% around the track, then give 90 in the whoops, and I would win the race given a start.
Exactly.
Right. So I think the whoops are the great equalizer, right? I mean, even Kitchen said it in an interview. He said, I had to learn the whoops. I had to learn to be bad at them and then learn to not be bad. He was like, if you sucked at the whoops and you jumped them, you're going to lose so much time. So it forced you to be good at the whoops. And I think for a lot of these kids growing or coming up into the Cole Davies and even as far as Deegan, now he's got great bike talent. So I don't doubt he could do 12 whoops, but I just think it levels the playing field or even just extends it out further. So you've got your skill gap, right? And it gives something for these amateur guys and even rookies to learn. It's kind of that it's essentially a wild card, right? It's and they go so many different ways. Now I'm all for making after every heat race and practice, the whoops get the only work on the track is the whoops. But even then, in a 20-minute rate, in a 20-minute moto, those whoops are going to get beat up. And I'm not for I think it's unsafe to have over 9 whoops and then have it just absolutely beat all day or not all night for the night show. So I think if they could find something, I mean, I've seen concrete Supercross tracks. I hope they don't do that, but even just add more of a solid base where these things they just don't give so much way. Because I've seen races by the end of the moto, it's just a straight rut all the way through with a little bit of slight bumps. If they could hold their shape and the riders could expect it every time, why can't we have 25 whoops?
Well,
it's
and look at what happened with Paris Supercross, right? Like the Feld Entertainment guys actually were asking for notes on how they made the whoops at Paris Supercross because they held up phenomenally well.
Yeah,
and I'm on the side of Steve Mathis, bro. I'm on the side of Steve Mathis.
200 miles of them. You could have 200 miles of whoops if they held up and were predictable every time you hit it.
If they hold up, and I think part of that is the fact that we have way too many sessions in the early part of the day too. You've got Friday press day, you've got free practice, and then you've got 2 qualifying sessions too. Then you've got heat races, then you've got main events, and most of the time these qualifying sessions where you're letting freaking 120 guys because you got a bunch of extra privateers rolling up in their freaking vans, getting maybe a part or two from Bubba Polity and a prayer. Those guys get to go around the track and mess around with it too. And you're not even taking most of those guys. You're taking the top the top 40 for each class. So I think Steve Mathis had a great point of, I think the quality of the track at the point you start racing and the track prep is more important than that of the design. The design is important. Absolutely. Like you said, Dragon's backs are crazy, but it doesn't matter how many whoops you've got. If you've got 8 or 9 whoops, and by the time the 450 Premier class does their first main event, they're racing on freaking plywood, which Colt Nichols has been famously quoted many times. Like, by the time I got the 450s, I realized that we'd be fun. When it got to us at the main event, we're racing on freaking plywood over the whoops because we're so beat up. Like,
it's horrible.
You only need 1 qualifying session. Half the time, everyone comes out Q1, gets their times. They come out for Q2, and the track's too beat up for them to go faster, right? Unless there's a weather change and like it was raining earlier, whatever. Just do 1 qualifying session. Figure the flip out and move on. You've got heat races for a reason. Let's not let a way larger field continue to beat the piss out of a track for a whole nother hour. Like that's especially with the whoops, because they take so much longer, and a lot of times are really, really hard to repair in general when they get beat up like that. Don't mess around with it. All right.
You're Carson, preaching, bro. No, Cole, you're preaching.
Take it away from me. I'll keep going.
I don't know. I think the only thing I'd have to add, and I don't know if anybody's talking about this, but going from 12 to 9 works only, I think, because every single person in the field right now, 450s and 250s included, has trained up until this point, assuming they have to ride 12. So 9 is easy. If they had trained this whole time, assuming they had to ride 15, 12 would be easy. And so then now the next generation coming up is going to ride like they got to ride 9. And then they're going to have the same results they had on 12. And then it's going to go to 6.
Yeah, and this whole thing is basically like saying, somehow magically when you add more than 9 whoops, people die. And look, I get it.
I think
like the stats last year, they're claiming, we didn't change it this year because last year we only had 2 guys that had major injuries in the whoops. One of those guys was Jeremy Martin. Enough said. The other guy was Ken Roxon, who went into the whoops without working suspension.
Rear shock.
Yeah.
I
get the point of like, we went to 9 whoops and like we kept all of our stars healthy.
I think they went to 9 just because they've seen it started. I feel like the first person I ever saw jump whoops and be effective was Webb.
I have,
but it was only when it was a triple sequence, right?
Exactly.
Even 9, 12, like when it was, you could triple through them. Because riding at 3 Palms, they've got a whoop section on the main track. If you can skim them, you're blowing everybody's doors off. But you have it's a 45-degree turn right after a table, so it's on the brake on the table. You can't really blitz them, so everybody jumps them. But it doesn't fall into the 3, 6, 9, 12.
Yeah,
there's like 13 of them. So when you hit the last one, when you clear it, now there's enough room after the whoop section before the next corner that when you hit that last single, I just air it out into the corner. So I mean, granted the bowl after, there was probably a 40, and then there was the corner. Now coming into a tight 90, I still think if you just one more whoop, right? So these guys 3-3-3 and then a
Don't
single out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's slower, right? Because
Yeah.
then if you blitz them, then you get all the way in, but they're still right kind of in that safe range. Because I mean, I've never skimmed even 8 whoops like that. I've done 4 or 5, but
5 more than me.
by then it gets a little hairy.
Yeah.
But these guys do this. I mean, they get a paycheck every Saturday for doing that. This is their job, and this is what they've done every day for their entire life, starting at 4 years old.
Look, it's all to try to keep the stars healthy, but at some point you're going to be degrading the value of the racing to where you no longer have stars, right? Because everyone can do 3-3-3 in the whoops. Yeah. So in my opinion, you need to go back to 10, 11, whatever, 12, whatever, for the sake of you need to keep the quality of the racing and also the quality of the track in general to where that's your best passing area. Okay. We don't want to see start cross turn into the main thing. We want the whoops are one of your best passing sections. And by God, if we keep having 9 whoops and 90-degree turns instead of bowl turns for every track, it's not going to work out great. It should be mandatory, like 9 to 10, 11, 12 whoops and a bowl turn so that you have passing there. Every track that has a 90-degree turn after the whoop section should be completely eliminated. It needs to be a bowl turn, in my opinion. That's the best quality racing. But whatever. I mean, we're going to Anaheim 1 and we got a 180-degree sand section after the whoop. So I don't even know what to think about that. I don't even know what to think about that, but that'll be interesting to see. But okay, Karsten, it happens every preview show. I have successfully derailed the show. We got one more time. We got one more guy to talk about. That's Jorge Prado.
Oh yeah, okay? That's right.
So for these wild cards, let me give you the scoop, if you will. Look, he's the best the rider in all of Europe and the rest of the world. He's proven himself everywhere but here. He came in here last year to have a cup of tea with Supercross to see if he actually wanted to make the jump. Trained for about 4 or 5 months with Gas at the time to be ready for Anaheim 1. Was just going to do 3 races, and there was a delay with MXGP. He got to race a 4th one. He won a heat race, but he was really more of just a top 10 guy. But the guy is a dog when it comes to dirt bikes in general. He's a 2-time world champion, one of the youngest back-to-back world champions ever in MXGP. And that's not a 250 championship like Tom Biel. That's the premier class in MXGP. Back-to-back 450 champ, upsetting the likes of Roman Febvre and Jeffrey Hurlings, like big dogs over there. He's upset. Definitely a threat to win motocross when we go outdoors because he is something special. The reports right now for Supercross is that he's not necessarily flying in the test track. Like we talked about, the only guy they're comparing him to is Jason Anderson, who's always good at the test track, but sometimes looks great at the test track. Then main event, not so much when you get into a real race the last couple of years. So not sure exactly what to think about that. All we know is right now he's a leg behind Jason Anderson, the current champion. But he's kind of in a nice position. He's getting to have his full SMX season for the first time, first full Supercross season for the first time. Some people are hyping him up. The most with gray matter between their ears are saying, look, he's got no expectations. He's probably going to be a consistent top 10 guy, maybe get some top 5s here and there. For Supercross, it's more, let's look at that second season. But for this year, the main focus is stay healthy for Paula come motocross round 1. But what are y'all's thoughts on this far riding for Kawasaki?
I think, man, we've seen these European riders come over, and it typically takes more than just 1 full year, right? I mean, we've seen Kenny do it just for one.
But he came over here when he was 12. That's the difference. And now Prado's
very true, but yeah, but we saw Kenny have the growing pains year. And then his breakout year against Dungey, and I mean, he was racing Stu. I mean, he was racing legends of the sport.
He's also a freaking
Prado.
So
yeah, Prado is too, right? So I mean, it's just I hold a little bit, just waiting to see what he could do. Now, I'm not doubting him at all. I think he's a great athlete. I think he's awesome on the bike, beating Hurlings.
Potentially the best raw starter in the entire field.
Oh, yeah.
He's almost automatic on the starting blocks.
Which we've only seen for perspective, right? Besides Prado early last year was Hurlings and Tomac in destinations. Like,
Yeah.
it's just tough to see where he's going to land or
Yeah.
expect where he's going to land without seeing it first, right? So, I definitely think he's a freak on the bike, and I think he can. I think he could win a race. I mean, it's just I think it's too tough to call it. I mean, like I said, he's great on the bike, and all you need is two guys to collect up front, and him be in fourth place and jump into first. And I don't think he's going to go flag to flag, green flag to checkered, but I definitely think he can put himself in a position to win just a race, or maybe
Okay.
even two.
Nice. Okay.
I'm excited to see him. Right, I love people coming over. I love just kind of the interesting factor, or somebody like the wild card,
Yes.
right? It's somebody who's just different, right? We don't know what to expect. He could come out and go 8, 7, 10, and then come out, God, in Anaheim 3, and come out and get second, or even win the race. It's like I love when there's somebody who's really good on the bike that could just come out and be that wild card guy who's we just don't know what to expect, and I think that keeps the sport exciting. To go to the UK, I think Kyle DeWolf and Deegan and at Nations, and him saying he's I just love the UK and the USA, because they're just completely different animals, and you can learn and train one animal, but then when you get the second, it's completely different. And I just love that. I love the balance, or even just
It's funny you bring him up too, because Kyle Wolf is also one of the guys that's kind of like on that fringe of he may come over, he may
right,
not. And
right.
Karsten, I wanted to know if you agree with me on these 2 points. Of number one, I think Jorge Prado's success or failure will either open or close the door for a lot more guys to come over from MXGP whenever they want, and be a lot more flexible over the next couple of years, or really for the next decade,
Good point.
than what we've seen in the past, where it's kind of just been like you may see an anomaly here or there, but any guy that wants to race in the U.S. that's going to have to do Supercross, they got to get over here when they're like Kenny and get here early. We haven't seen a lot of guys that are 19, 20, 21, kind of prime age make the jump when they've never raced Supercross before. And then the other thing is, you want to talk about the magnitude of him coming over here. This is the equivalent of like a Max Verstappen in F1 coming over to IndyCar, with the exception being that this is why Supercross and motocross and the SMX series as a general is such a gem here. Look, this series that we love so much, is the premiere of the world. Okay, MXGP is great. Okay, you've got great quality racing there, but as far as bringing in the best talent, this is your best argument for saying, look, the domestic series for the U.S. is still, and potentially always will be, your most stacked dirt bike racing and best quality product that there is. This is the equivalent to a Max Verstappen coming into IndyCar, with the exception being that our IndyCar of the domestic Supercross motocross series for the U.S. is not the little IndyCar. It just has one big race every year, and then you have Cole trying to be a propagandist to get more people to like IndyCar the rest of the year. No. This is, for the longest time, been the best dirt bike racing on the planet, and it's going to stay that way. So it just speaks volumes to it. Do you agree, Karsten?
Yeah, I think that for a while it was thought that you could, ride motocross and wherever you came from, and then whenever you decided you conquered that, you can just go race Supercross and you'll win that too. And it's clearly not that way. And so I think that Kenny was like one of the first guys from Europe that was able to kind of put together a blueprint of, okay, here's how you got to do it. And so now those guys are looking up to him, and so they've got somebody they can model, kind of their, I don't want to say their program, but like, as you're coming up as a kid, you can start to look at that and go, okay, I see what Kenny did. That's kind of what you got to do to make this successful. And I know that by putting in that work now, it'll pay off because he did it. And so we're going to start, I think, seeing a lot more guys that start early like that and are able to come over and, Jorge Prado, I mean, maybe he comes out, maybe he does, I could see him being like a top 5 guy, and obviously it's going to take a little while to get acclimated to everything. These guys are going to be like away from their families and stuff. That takes a toll, so it's going to be tough for sure, but I think Kenny kind of opened a door, and I think Jorge Prado is just going to be one of the first guys that's walking through that door.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
agree
make
that.
a point.
Yeah.
So we've seen it with coming across the pond, right, from Tom Vial, but these guys are later in their career, which when Jet and Hunter, which is, I mean, it's not Europe, maybe South, but they came over early, right? And I feel like we've seen the most success from these European riders or just non-American riders when they've came over early. So I still think Prado can do it, but I don't know if it'll be on the level of a Kenny or Jet and Hunter, given when
Definitely
they
not
came
year
over. Right,
one.
what Carson said. Going back to that was it might be tough given just the age, right? Because they've grown accustomed to the tracks overseas to then come over here, and Supercross is its own animal, and trying to conquer that beast and put a leash on it. When you're younger, you're more flexible and you can learn to put it on a leash quicker than you can as you get older, right? So I totally agree with Carson, and I think we'll see. He's not following the likes of Ken Roxon on a age to or year to year scale, but like you said, these guys that's kind of the program that they want to follow is come in and be that Ken Roxon.
Yeah. And I think a successful season for him is being a consistent top 10 guy and being healthy for round 1 of Paula. And I think with doing that, you're going to get top 5s, and you may even get a shot at the podium. Yeah. And then I think next year is your turning point to where you figure out if you're going to be a contender or not. But I think it's time to just kind of, just skim over the best of the rest real quick. And then let's do our buy, sell, steal after that. That sound good?
Let's do it.
Cool.
Okay. Guys, a lot of things to talk about here. Let me kind of briefly kind of skim through some people real quick. And then, Carson, you can ask about who's left. Christian Craig, he's on a new deal, but he will most likely not race at A1, to my current understanding, because he tore his knee up in the last couple rounds of SMX, had to get surgery on it. He'll be in the championship at some point, not competing for it, but he'll be racing in Supercross this season. I would say probably maybe 3 or 4 races in, maybe it sounds like. I'm not 100% sure, but I would bet he's not ready for A1. But he's got a unique thing to where he's back on a factory Yamaha with Star Racing. He's just not technically on Cooper Webb and Eli Tomac's team. He's technically racing with kind of in the same compound that Deegan and the Yamaha 250 guys are, and part of his salary is being paid by the Deegans to be a part-time coach for Hayden Deegan, which is pretty cool. But that might mean we have an opportunity to see Christian Craig's god-tier whoop-skimming ability again. So we'll see what happens there. Colt Nichols has switched from beta because it didn't work out. He didn't like where it was going. It was kind of a mutual deal with them. So he has left beta mid-season in motocross last year to go to Suzuki. So he is over there. Looks to be potentially a guy that can sneak in the top 10. Has a lot of upside with him. Like, the dude's a 250 champion. Was a top 5 guy, more like 5 to 7 guy when he was on that 1 year with Honda 2 years ago. But kind of a question mark there. Joey Savacci finally back in the 450 class, racing with, is it Phoenix Honda or Firepower Honda? One of the two. Firepower. Yep, that's what I've got on my notes. You're right, Alec. That'll be really fun to watch. A lot of upside with that guy. Kyle Chisholm, still Chisholm. He's there. He's gonna win some LCQs and he's gonna collect a paycheck. He's gonna be there. So Carson, who did I leave off here?
Shane McElrath, you just went right over him like he wasn't even.
He's with a new team this year, right? Is it Bubba Pauly, I think? Because he lost his Suzuki ride.
Yeah, Colt coming in.
Yeah, I want to say it's like Bubba Pauly or something like that. I think he's going to lose even more relevancy than he already lost, which is a shame because he's a guy that had some good years in his last couple of 250s and had a spotlight at one point, just hasn't found a 450 spotlight yet. But yeah, I predict him to kind of be in LCQs and fighting to get in main events. But who else did I leave off on this list?
I think that was it. As far as like in the actual field.
Of course, Dylan Ferrandis.
Oh yes.
Okay, let me go to my note sheet real quick. He's French. That's all I got. Yeah, I mean, for better or worse, that's what I've got for you. He's French. No, I'm just kidding. It's more than that. Look, he's a guy that was with Yamaha 2 years ago, kept complaining about the bike, even though he was on one of the better bikes in the field. He was supposed to be their guy that mid-tier, occasional podium threat on that Yamaha for Supercross, and then supposed to be a challenger for the title outdoors. Won it 1 year, I believe, in 450s.
Pretty dominantly.
Yeah, and they just fell off the blocks 2 years ago, and then complained about the bike so much that they had bit him in the rear end because then they were like, okay, you hate it so much, bye-bye. Okay, we're gonna get Cooper Webb, sayonara. Go have fun with the privateer team, and then he went on. Is it Firepower Honda or Phoenix Honda? He got a Honda. Okay, and he kept raving about it in the offseason, saying he's never felt so in love with the bike, yada yada yada. And then he turns out to be a 5-7 guy, and then complaining about the bike again. So he says that he didn't take into account that he was going to be racing more of the stock Honda than the factory Honda because of the fact that they're a privateer team that gets more factory support later in the year than they do early on with a new season. Supposedly the 2025 stock Honda is supposed to perform more like the 2024 factory Honda out of the box. So maybe he's a little happier, but that doesn't make him any more competitive, in my opinion. I think this is a guy that this will be kind of his last season of any relevancy, in my opinion. I hate to be negative, but like the most positive thing I can say about him, for better or worse, this may even be a negative, is that he's French.
Yeah, I was about to say you're talking negative on him because he's French. Look, the French, I don't have a direct problem with everything they do. They actually made some pretty cool battleships in World War II. That was about the only thing they did right. They didn't even use them correctly. But the bigger point is I don't directly hate the French. I just hate some French people. And the way I've seen them act off of the bike has rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like the way he sold out that Yamaha bike when you had a guy that was way more competitive than him on it. He's also the Dylan
reason that
Ferrandis made you hate French people.
I said I just hate some French people. Okay, you're gonna get me in trouble here. Only some, and he's one of them. Now, look. The other thing is, I do have some not hatred. I don't hate the guy. I just have a distaste for him. Is whose first win could we have gotten 2 years earlier if it weren't for this guy taking a dirt nap in the middle of Houston? Does anyone remember?
When we were talking about it, I'm guessing it was Malcolm Stewart.
No. In that case, I'd be talking about
earlier.
Like I do Vince
Didn't
Freed.
know it hasn't happened. Was it AP?
So if y'all recall, 2023
yeah.
Houston, who was right behind Eli Tomac, who was struggling in the early part of the main event, and literally about to pass him in the bowl turn before the whoops, and the whole crowd was going crazy before they threw a red flag. It was AP. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Eli Tomac was on the ropes. Chase Sexton was in fourth or whatever. It was early in the race, but we were about 5 minutes in, and we saw AP run down Eli Tomac because he was off. There was something going on, and he's about to make the move. He's right on his rear wheel. He has the momentum. We can see the pass about to happen. They get like almost to where he's got his front wheel in front of him, and then we see a red flag pop up. And it's because Dylan Ferrandis is out.
He's asleep.
Right next to the over under. after the whoops. Okay, that's because the homie tried to do something stupid and went face first into the ground, and he was out. Card off and every whole thing because he was doing something stupid. I don't know what it was. I didn't see the crash because I was watching Cowboy about to have his first win. He was French. No white flags were waved, to my knowledge. Look, I don't have a direct problem with all French people. There's just some French people that rub me the wrong way, especially when they start complaining, and it doesn't come out as good when it's Dylan Ferrandis. So he just rubs me the wrong way. He just happens to be French. Okay. He just falls into the category. Okay. I like Tom Vial a lot, actually. So I trade one good Frenchman for a bad one. And we're 50-50. Okay. I don't have a trend one way or another. The stats are the stats. Okay. Dylan Ferrandis, French. Tom Vial, French. Dylan Ferrandis, not relevant. Tom Vial, very relevant. Okay. One complains about their bike, the other doesn't. Okay.
You can make your argument.
One of them's last most relevant moment was losing to Jet Lawrence in motocross. And then the season before that, the Supercross season before that, took a dirt nap. And then that was his last relevant Supercross ride at Houston. And he ruined AP's shot at beating Tomac for his first win ever. And the other is now a champion in Supercross, something Dylan Ferrandis will never be able to say. So here we are. Okay.
Here we are.
Like I said, I'm not against French people.
Valid.
I just have some French people that I like and some that I don't. And their negatives may come out a little bit more in that French accent. It may be a little more annoying as an American. I don't know. It is what it is. The point is Dylan Ferrandis is French and he's irrelevant.
Because he's French.
I think the most
not because he's French. That's the only thing he's got going for. That's the only thing that makes him relevant is that he's French right now. That's the only thing that differentiates between him. That's the point I'm making. The only thing that differentiates him between a Colt Nichols, Joey Savacci, and Shea McElrath, and a Kyle Chisholm is he's French. It's more of a compliment. He's got one unique thing over the other guys that are going to be hanging around 10th through 16th.
For being French for 2 minutes. You're trying to circle back.
No, I'm trying to say it. Okay, I'm trying to say it. He's French.
Sorry, I don't
That's
mean
the
to
only
call
thing
you
he's
out,
got different than the other guys rolling in 10th through 16th. All right. It's a privateer's life for him.
I think the most disrespectful thing about it is calling French people just a category. It's just a category you fall into. It's not even like it's not like a whole country or anything like that. It's just a category.
Just people.
You just get spawned in,
Yeah.
And you've got two people that you're holding this judgment against, but they balance each other out. So are you neutral or do you not like French people?
Look, at this point, we're bringing Switzerland in because I'm pretty neutral with the French. Okay, like I said, they built cool battleships. They didn't know how to use them. Okay, there's a plus and minus to everything they do. Right?
Yeah. So they're just riding this line.
They're just neutral. Okay. Yep. they're just neutral, like Switzerland, but Switzerland didn't take an L in World War II. The French did. Anywho, the point is,
Dylan Ferrandis missteps one time, and the French are done.
And the French are
Look, all I'm saying is there's a reason you've never seen Dylan Ferrandis wear an all-white uniform in Supercross and motocross. It's because it's too familiar to the flag that France was waving in World War II. Okay. So
he is a fly guy. I don't even think Fly has white gear.
That another insightful point. But like I said, the only reason I brought up French is that's the only thing differentiating on a serious. Like, I'm trying to be serious. That's the only thing differentiating him between the rest of the guys on this list. Everyone on this list is going to be 10th through 16th most of the time, and a top 10 is going to make their day. And that's the standard he's riding with right now because he complained his way out of a factory ride.
He's French. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Carson.
Colt Nichols, everybody. What do we think? What do you think?
I think he's great. I think he's gonna have a mid-season. I mean, if we're being honest, I think all these guys are gonna have kind of a mid-season, but you know what? That's okay. That's what we're here for. I think of any of them that might do something like quite good. Might be Christian Craig.
Just wave it like this, Cole. Wave it like
Yeah, y'all want to do the
yeah, it's
what
just
is it, buy, sell, steal?
Yeah, let's just move on.
Yep.
Buy, sell, steal. What are you guys looking at? Cole is selling just the
Cole.
French as a player.
Cole, that's how you lead us off.
I've got a whole country mad at me now, but I've gone on record as I have no direct beef with them. Okay, I will say, you know what? To equalize it out, Pierre Gasly, one of my favorite F1 drivers. So now it's now it's 2 out of 3. So we're on the positive. Okay, so you could say I like more French people than I hate. It's just like I said, we're talking about relevancy here. So
yeah,
buy, sell, steal. Okay. Anyone who says
give us the premise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. For those that aren't familiar with the segment, we pick a buy, a sell, and a steal for the entire field. The buy is the guy that you expect. He's expected to get the results. He's expected to be the guy, and you're buying into it. You're saying, yes, they are right. The sell is someone that has expectations, whether it's to contend for the championship or to be a race winner or whatever it is. He's got some kind of standing. You're saying, nope, you guys are full of it. He ain't cutting it. And then the steal is someone who you think people are underselling and will do way better than they are currently having expectations for. Hence the term, steal. You're going to buy into that stock and you think you're going to reap a dividend off of it and make some bank. So for my buy, I think anyone that's picking Jet Lawrence as their buy, you're correct. You're just not trying. So for me, I'm going to go Cooper Webb as the buy. I think he has the least amount of variables in regards to what he needs to win a championship. I mean, after seeing him take Tomac down to the wire in 22 for as long as he could on a KTM that he hated, and then doing something similar in 23, I would expect nothing less than even if he was out there on a freaking Suzuki with a Kickstarter, he could still find a way to take it down to Nashville at a minimum in round 14 and still be in play. So I say I'm buying on him. And then for sell, guy I'm selling on, according to Carson, is Hunter Lawrence. I don't think he's going to be a contender. I think he's a guy that could win a race, maybe 2. Other people think he will be the second or third contender on this list and think that he's going to be either right behind Jet or he's going to be in between Jet and Sexton or Jet and Tomac, Jet and Webb, whatever. I didn't see enough in Supercross last year, nor in SMX, to completely jump on that bandwagon. He's got 1 overall win across all 3 series in total last year. And with a bike that's behind the 8th ball, allegedly, we'll see what happens. We could be given false hope, and when it comes to a dominating bike platform last season, if I were to pick someone to not be a contender, it would be Hunter Lawrence. So that's my sell. The steal, in my opinion, I say that's a tough one. You know what? I'm going to talk about the guys that aren't going to be talked about here. My steal is going to be Colt Nichols. I think he could go from a guy that has an expectation to be a 10th through 16th guy, and I think he has the potential with a Suzuki that will behave better than the Beta last season to be more of a consistent top 10 guy. It's going to be 10th at the best, maybe 9th if someone falls, but that's a huge step up from last year. Right. And I think that's something he can build off of to maybe use as a building block. I'm being as serious as I can here. As a building block to get on a better factory right next year. There's going to be some open seats. He's valued as a great test rider. So my steal is, okay, I think he will be the actual best of the rest. And he's not French. But more importantly, seriously, I do think he will be the best of the rest. The only other guy I would consider as that much of an upside is Christian Craig, because he's on a factory Yamaha. But he's going to be out the first couple of rounds. And he's got, the dude's elbow in motocross and SMX with like skin and bone because he's still fixing that thing up. He's got not a lot of muscle on it at all. So I think the guy with the least amount of baggage right now is Colt Nichols. So, and I think he still has enough upside to eclipse into a consistent top 10 guy. And I think if he does that, then next season he could get a 1-year deal with someone that's in a better factory team than Suzuki to be that veteran that helps him build the bike and potentially a shot to be more of a top 7 guy. But only way he does that is if he's a consistent top 10 guy that has some flashes with Suzuki. It's the only way you're getting back there. But I think he has the talent to do it. So that's my buy, sell, steal. I'm ready to get obliterated for whatever, opinions that there's problems with, but I'm done harping on the French. So guys, what are your buy, sell, steals? I just went through mine. I got Cooper Webb was the buy. I'm selling on Hunter Lawrence, and I think Colt Nichols is the steal compared to the best of the rest. I think he's the best of the rest. Any problems with that, gentlemen? I know you guys may have some more upside on Hunter, but any problems with that before we move on to y'all's picks?
No, I think it's fair.
Yeah, I don't mind that list actually. Like I think that's a valid list. What do you think,
Carson? I've gotten for you to agree with me 3 times on this show.
Dude,
what's going on?
It's gonna be a good season.
I know. I just think that I mean, I'm kind of going back and forth on some people, but I think that I could see that list playing out. That's what I'm saying. I think I could see it playing out. Like I could see Cooper Webb coming out and having a great season. Like I could see that world. He's had a good off season, a more complete off season with the new team. Hunter Lawrence, like we talked, I think that he could do great, assuming he overcomes the issue with his the endurance problem that he was showing in the motocross season. But if he doesn't do that, totally, he's going to be 5th overall if he can't get past that. So I could totally see that, him not overcoming that. And then, I could see Colt Nichols having a good season. Suzuki probably getting it a little more developed year after year, and being able to ride more with a guy like Ken Roczen. And it's a factory team, kind of counts as a factory. It's a factory team. I don't mind the list. I don't know what to say. I'd love to come in
all
and
I'm
say
hearing
it
is that
sucks,
you're going to steal my fantasy picks. So
yeah, I was going to say, what are your picks?
I'm going to go totally different from you. I'm going to say my buy, because I think Jet's the obvious buy, but
yeah,
I'm going to go with the same buy. I'm copying you on Cooper Webb.
Okay.
That's what I truly feel. So I'm going to copy you. I'm going to take it. And it's a copy. It's okay. I was taking it too. Okay. I'm going buy Cooper Webb. For the same reasons I just mentioned, I think he could have a great season. I think a lot of the reason he didn't have a good season last year was because he didn't have a good off season. Coming into the year, he was switching teams, that there's challenges with that. And he had to get used to the bike a little bit throughout the year. So he's had a whole year, a good off season, hopefully. And so, I think this could be a good year for him. My sell is going to be Tomac. I got to sell Eli.
Okay, bro, who are you? Okay, what's
Right.
Are you even a Tomac fan anymore? What's going on?
I'm not going with my heart here. Okay, I'm going with the noggin.
Okay,
and it says Tomac doesn't. It's not so hot, I think I don't know. That's just my gut. It's my gut, my brain. Actually, it's the whole thing. This is a full body decision here.
Full body.
All right. Someone just says he's like a stiff board,
He's like Pawpaw out there, bro. He's getting old.
I don't know. I feel like he's just so fragile.
Okay, look. So Carson, you're saying that Eli Tomac cashes in his Social Security at the end of the season. He's that old. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Break a hip.
Yeah, I'd imagine he probably got some chickens over the summer, and he's
Actually, I know
hobbies now.
he has livestock. He has horses, so he does have that. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, like he's got hobbies, you know, he's getting some hobbies going. He's kind of starting to think about like, you know, life after racing. You know, he's
His
doing
mind's
other
just
things.
not in it.
So
Yeah,
Carson is
like
like the
he's
Fernando Alonso of
That's
this group.
fair.
He's like, oh, I knew he would break because he has a family.
yeah, like
Yeah,
I
but
would
that's
bet
fair.
That's
I
fair.
would bet that in this last off season, he's at the point now where he's got an increasing amount of time just like driving the Bobcat around and driving around the water truck. Okay. Like he's doing
But
more
his
of the
dad
like
does that
He's
for him.
dad.
doing John Tomac things.
No, I know, but
Exactly.
I think he's
Legend.
like, you know, I'm kind of tired. Hey, Dad, I'll take care of them on water track. Like I think
Oh, so
he's
you think
kind
he's
of.
getting soft? You think he's not
I
letting his dad do the work anymore? You think he's like, oh, Papa, you sit on the couch, you know?
Yeah, and he's starting to enjoy that stuff more than riding. You know, like he's kind of getting old.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. The vibe is. We'll see.
So you think
It's
he's
going to come
passing
out.
around
Yeah,
butterscotch candies at the end of Anaheim 1?
right. Yeah, I bet it's falling out of his pockets
Yeah,
as he's
sure.
riding. Like, I think
He
he
takes
just.
adventures out.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
slander for your favorite rider here. I can't believe this is an anomaly of a show. Okay, so then who's your steal?
I'm stealing Justin Cooper.
Oh,
He was borderline.
Right.
I'm
picked for
stealing
right?
Justin Cooper.
Okay.
This is a full Yamaha selection here. I just now realized.
For both better and worse.
Yeah. So I think Justin Cooper comes in, and I think he's
got no pressure.
Right. I could totally. Well, I mean, a little bit more than last year because last year was like a learning year, building year. You know, he's expected to do nothing except learn the 450 class, right? This year, maybe there's a little bit more expectation on him, but like the team is not relying on him to win a single race. Like
Not for
the
Supercross.
sponsorship
Motocross,
money is
yes.
based on, yeah, but like Supercross wise, like they've got Eli Tomac and Cooper Webb on the team. Like if Justin Cooper does absolutely nothing, not a single sponsor is going to call and be pissed. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So yeah, like you're saying, there's no pressure on him except for his own self. You know, so he's really in a great spot. And I think that I don't know. I think he embodies the essence of a steal. You know, he's got the potential, and if he can get out there, get aggressive, and he can pull starts, dude. I mean, I don't know. He's right there on the precipice, and he's one of these guys. Like, there's a lot of guys right now that are at a make or break point, like Malcolm with getting a win. You know, Hunter Lawrence with catching up to Jet and being as fast as him. Like, if Justin Cooper doesn't do it this year, this is a year that's kind of primed for him to be a top 5, top 3 guy. If he can't do it this year, he might be one of these that never really finds his way. Because this is like, it's premium. Like he's on a good team, he's got a good bike, no pressure to win, and he's fast. So yeah, those are mine. That's
okay. It. Alex, you got anything? What are your picks?
Yes, I do. I'm buying Chase Sexton because neither of y'all had, and the dude's.
I'm expected to.
I mean,
I'm trying to do what I'm not expected to do. Okay, I'm trying to add variety. I actually added more of the same. So thank you for doing something different. I appreciate it.
I think it's a good buy. I almost
Chase
picked him, but I came out with so much heat on him at first. I feel like I couldn't turn on what I originally said.
Nah, dude, Chase. I'm a huge Chase fan. I love. I mean, he's built. I mean, he's the bulldog. He's taken over the American bulldog.
He's saying, Tomac, you're not a bulldog anymore. That's me.
Okay. His riding style, he just, barring any broken bone, you can't hurt this guy.
He's built. I've said it many times on the show. Chase Sexton is built like a brick outhouse, and do with that what you will.
Yeah, I think he's gonna click, man. I really do. I think he's got something to prove, and he wants to race against a stacked field. He wants everybody there, and he wants to beat everybody. And you could say the same about everybody else, but I think Chase is going to be there for all 17 rounds and then into the playoffs. I mean, longevity, right? Like we saw Jet blow out in one race. Besides Chase breaking his arm, getting landed on. I mean, we've seen him get landed on one more time by Cooper Webb.
Yeah.
And he was there next weekend, and Cooper Webb was out. Like, I mean, without a broken bone.
He had tire
be
treads
there.
on his body, and he was still there.
Oh, yeah, and that jersey and his chest protector was sticking to him the next weekend, I guarantee it. And he was still there and still had a great race.
He's not only got microplastics in his body from that, he's got rubber from the tire.
Oh, yeah. Well, Chase is my buy. He's going to be there the whole season.
Okay,
I really think he's going to be there. I'm selling Cooper Webb.
All right, well, you've done it. Like I've said, once one person doubts Cooper Webb, it's guaranteed championship.
Cooper Webb's a dog.
Congratulations, Cooper Webb, 2025 Supercross champion.
No.
Alec, this is your fault.
Cooper Webb is a dog, but he's a dog with cataracts. This dude's getting old. It's hard for him to see, bro. We saw him last year try to triple out of a corner that nobody's hit all night, and he lands on Chase. To go back on the point I made earlier, he's a great dog. He's a good farm dog, right? He's gonna get the job done, but he's getting old, dude. I mean, you gotta bring in his son to take over that spot, and to me, that's Chase Sexton. And for that, a dog with cataracts, he just hangs out on the couch and eats treats, right? He'll take those treats if he can get them. But he's not gonna go stand and stare at the treat jar, right? Like he's only gonna take the treats if they're given. And to me, that's a sell because that's just you can't win races that way.
Yeah,
it might be controversial, but
he's not pulling out any tricks. He'll sit and at the very most shake.
All of these guys have raced Cooper Webb for at least a year. Tomac's been doing it for 5 years. And Tomac's an old dog too, but he's
an older dog.
But he's like an old hound. You know, he's learned his cataracts, where Cooper Webb is kind of just starting to get there.
Okay, hold on. Let's get this straight. So Eli's older than Cooper, but yet he has had cataracts long enough to where he's like Marvel's Daredevil, to where he does he can see with hearing now. But Cooper has had cataracts for so little of time that he has not figured out how to see without seeing.
You got it. You understand. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So then is Jason Anderson just is he about to get put down? Like what
no, hold
how
on,
do we continue with this dog analogy? Okay, all right.
I'm gonna get there. So my steal.
What kind of dog are you stealing?
I'm gonna steal the Shih Tzu, bro. I'm going Mookie. I'm going Mookie, bro. I'm stealing Mookie. Wow. Mookie's gonna get one. It's gonna be two. It's gonna be three. I mean, this dude is so slept on. If Jason Anderson and his beef, gets grounded, thrown in a fucking street taco, I mean that's perfect for Mookie. If he can just stay out of the beef, I've got Mookie getting that momentum. He's going to get his first win, and he's going to get his second and third this year.
I'm here for all the Mookie propaganda.
My steal is Mookie. He's kind of the Shih Tzu. He's the small dog nobody really thinks about. This kind of watch your step, don't step on him kind of dog, but he's still a dog. He's gonna get it done.
Butter, baby.
There's my dog.
Be careful. There's a dog there.
Yeah, bro. You might step on a turd or two, and then maybe even on him. But he's gonna come back. He's gonna bite. He's gonna bite your ankle, bro. And that's probably 3 rounds. Like biting your ankle is a little like a.
Hey, what do ankle biter dogs have? Like Chihuahuas and everything else, Shih Tzus. They've got longevity. Okay,
exactly.
The Dobermans may make it to 10 years, but that little freaking Chihuahua that won't shut up, it's going to be there for 18.
Okay? It's easy 20.
They live a long time. Yeah, as long as everybody's making sure
in a 35-year-old lady's purse, but they live a long time.
Yeah,
long time.
Well, he's probably. As long as they're eating right and everything, I'm sure he's got the good nutrients and all that stuff. I bet he's We'll see. I don't mind those either. I kind of like that, dude.
He
I was
kind
going a
of
little controversial, but I had some
well.
reasoning behind
That's
it.
usually how I would vote, and I'm trying to be more conservative this year. So you kind of took my playbook usually, which is just
I'm
pray
throwing a
Mookie
wrench.
comes back, and then buy in on Chase, get your heart broken in both categories, and then your sell ends up being what you should have bought in it. So you
Yeah.
pretty much stole
We've
my
got
thunder.
fantasy for a reason.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be wrong about Cooper Webb, but that's the only one. We'll see.
I don't.
Well, like I
think
said,
so.
because
see.
he's doubted him, Cooper Webb is your 2025 Supercross champion. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. Every time
I
you
doubted
forget
Webb when
about
Adam
or doubt Cooper
Cianciarulo
Webb,
ran over
he's
his
there.
brain. I doubted Webb that entire season.
Good God.
I said Webb is going to crash out. I remember telling my dad watching the race. I said, my dad's a big Webb fan. I said Webb is done. I said Webb's done this season.
You're saying he's cooked?
I called it. No, he's a great athlete. He's great on the bike, but he was done that season, and I called it like early in the season. Got all the way to the last 4 rounds. He gets rocked by Adam, dumping over in the third corner on the second lap. Like, that's just Webb, dude. I mean, I just don't. He's kind of he's in the same spot in my heart as AP. As a dude, I know can get it done, but I hold on to that piece of my heart. I don't let it go. So
well, with an opinion like that, I'm not sure who has more CTE: Cooper Webb post Adam Cianciarulo run in, or you. But
I've taken a couple spills on the bike. But no, I'll see.
I'm kidding.
We'll have the same recap podcast at the end of the season. And Cooper
Yes. Well, but you make a good point though. Somebody of our contenders list has got to be the one that doesn't figure it out. Like someone's got to have a bad year. Like it's great. We have a stacked field. We've got 5 returning champions here. The first time in the AMA's history for Supercross. But that means that's 4 champions that ain't going to get it done. So happens to have a stacked field. You got guys that should be great that ain't. So it's interesting to think about. All right, well, let's talk about 250s. Like all of our picks here. I'll kind of breeze through this as quickly as I can. There's a lot we don't know, but one of the breaking pieces of news that we do know, circa like 5 hours ago, is Jalek Swoll is most likely out of the season with a torn Achilles. That's terrible to see, but he was going to be Triumph's premier championship rider, or pushing for a championship rider on the East Coast. So as a reaction to that, it sounds like they are moving Austin Faulkner, who was going to be racing the West Coast, to the East Coast, because the only other guy that got racing East Coast is Styles Robertson, who has been all kinds of beat up for the last year and a half, and he's not going to be ready to push for a championship most likely. So they need someone who's going to be a dog on each coast. So this means they're putting all their chips on Jordan Smith for the West Coast, and then everything's going in on Austin Faulkner for the East. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. I'll be interested to see if they try to bring in a fill-in rider for Jalek Swoll, but we know that's probably not going to come until round 3 or 4, if that happens at all. I suspect maybe not. They may not do that at all, but we'll see. Honda, you got Joe Shimoda, you got Chance Hymas. I'm not sure who's racing what. The main thing with that, I think Hymas. Oh, you know what? If I were a betting man, I would say Hymas is definitely going East Coast because he had ACL surgery at the end of round 2 for SMX. So he's going to need that extra time.
I was going to disagree with you. I know he needs the extra time, but if he's healthy, we all know Joe Shimoda does way better in the second half of the year. So why not put him on the East Coast, given Hymas is full 100% ready to go?
I would say because it doesn't matter what coast you put him on, because Joe Shimoda for the last 3 years has shown you that he cannot start a championship no matter what time of the year, no matter what coast, no matter motocross either. He cannot get a solid grip on the championship and start well enough to even put himself in contention. I know we had some difficulty getting a new bike figured out last year with his transition from Cowie to Honda, and the 2 years before that, he was practicing on the Indian burial ground that is Pro Circuit Kawasaki's test track. So there comes a terrible luck with that. But still, the facts are the facts, the stats are the stats. He cannot race or has not raced well enough to put himself in the running for any championship, and he hasn't had good starts either, just in races in general. Like he hasn't figured out starts yet. Like I said, he was the one anomaly to Honda in regards to not ripping hole shots consistently. So, but from what my notes say, I don't hate French people, and Joe Shimoda will be racing West Coast, and Chance Hymas will be on the East Coast. So, KTM, you got Julian Beaumer. He's one of the. There's not as many guys that are being said that are flying at the test track as there was last year. Like everyone was flying at the test track last year. It's one of those things that, like, when you hear flying at the test track, you might as well have just been told that they got a high five. Like it doesn't always hold a lot of weight. It's like always 50-50. But the word on the street is that he is flying, which is good. Tom Vial, he's your returning champ for the East Coast. I think he's just going to be doing East for that. So I would bet Beaumer is West, and then Vial is going to be East. I think he's going to be looking to go back to back. We'll see. Rockstar Gas. The only thing I have definite on this is that Casey Cochran is still working his way back from injury, so he should be East Coast. He had a pretty rough injury his first day of boot camp, so I think he's going to be East Coast. The other two you got is Ryder DiFrancesco and Pierce Brown. And keep in mind, Casey Cochran was Rockstar Husqvarna, but keep in mind their downsizes. So they kind of combined the Gas and Rockstar Husqvarna 250 program, with the exception of RJ, into just Rockstar Gas. So he's pretty much same program, same bike. It's just a different sticker package on it, you know. So Ryder D, this is a turning point for him. It has to be, or it's going to be like Aero KTM from here on out. Like he's going to kind of go through the same path as like a Talon Hawkins right now. He's not going to make it if he doesn't. Yeah, he's got to be a podium guy at the minimum. That's my opinion on that. Pierce Brown, he trended up towards the end of last season. We'll see if he can be consistent. That's all I have to say about him. Husqvarna, you got RJ Hampshire defending. It was East Coast? No, it was West Coast. Yeah, came out and won ANAHEIM, won last year. Defending West Coast champion. He wanted to race West Coast, but had that wrist injury and had to get surgery on it. Was kind of pushing to try to make West Coast work, but from what I'm hearing is he is East Coast. You never know with RJ, but that's what I'm hearing is that he's going East Coast. So he will not be trying to defend his West Coast title. Yamaha, their team is a freaking army, but the roster consists of Hayden Deegan, Max Anstey, Pierce Brown. Sorry, I left Pierce Brown on the Rockstar Gas team. Forgot about that. He's on Star Racing Yamaha. My bad. You got Pierce Brown. You got Michael Mosman, Cole Davies, Dax Bennick, and Nate Thrasher. A lot of young talent there. When you look at Deegan, you look at Cole Davies, Daxton Bennick, somewhat Pierce Brown, and then you got guys like Nate Thrasher, Michael Mosman, and Max Dancy that are some old dogs that are trying to finally punch their ticket up to the big leagues in the premier class. So it's an interesting contrast there. We'll see how it plays out. Obviously, Deegan is the favorite to win his coast, which should be West Coast. The others, who knows? We don't. I mean, Yamaha literally has an army to send, so we don't really know who else they're gonna send. Other than that, Deegan has publicly announced he's racing West Coast, which leads us to Kawasaki, which the main riders we have confirmed going West Coast is going to be Levi Kitchen, then most likely Garrett Marchbanks. Most likely we're going to see Ty Masterpool, who's less of a Supercross guy than he is outdoors. He's probably going to be doing East Coast, so he has more time to prep for that. And then McAdoo, probably same deal. So they have a heavy hitter on the East Coast, but who knows? Hammaker, I would expect to go East Coast, but honestly, they need to make a slot for Drew Adams. So if you think about it, it's probably easier to put a rookie on the East Coast, give him more time to prep. So I actually think Hammaker could go West Coast. We'll see.
Quick comment.
But that does give us the Levi and Deegan matchup in West Coast. That is confirmed.
Last time we saw Hammaker and Kitchen in a race together, it was what was it?
The
The
East-West
final,
showdown.
The East-West showdown, and they both
Yeah.
took each other out.
Wait, what? Wait, what? Wait, what? No, wasn't that McAdoo and Kitchen? But because I thought it was both.
Oh yeah, it was McAdoo.
Yeah, because they were
It was
both leading the
McAdoo and
point.
Kitchen. Yeah.
Yes.
So you definitely separate those guys.
Yeah. That dude, Mitch Payton. I don't know how he didn't jump off of a ledge at that point.
Oh my god!
That dude went into that race with both championships.
So he couldn't jump.
And then left with none. That's a key point. You said that, not me.
I've met Mitch. He's kind of an ass.
Oh man. Well, anywho,
that's funny.
Yeah, I don't know how Mitch didn't leave his wheelchair. I don't know. Whatever you want to, whatever floats your boat, Alec. I don't know how Mitch didn't throw a temper tantrum after that night. But I think you're going to see Drew Adams on the East Coast. Hamburger may go back to the West instead of going East. And you got Firepower Honda. You got some guys like Nick Romano, who was a Yamaha guy. He's over there now. We'll see what happens. Colin Park, Gavin Towers, Evan Ferry. That's an interesting privateer team to look at. For me, a more interesting privateer team to look at is going to be, of course, Club MX. They're kind of like the like a second chance factory for like failed factory riders, like Jet Reynolds, Max Volan. Yeah, like land of misfit toys, if you will. But Jet Reynolds, Max Volan, Cody Shocks has really found at home there. Had a lot of success last season, even doing really well on a broken collarbone at one point. Mark Fennes and Devin Simonson. I've heard that Devin Simonson is injured and he's been replaced with Reed Taylor until he's healthy. I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea what coast these guys are racing on. My only thing is, for the love of God, Jet Reynolds was one of the most hyped amateur guys ever, but has not even made it to a main event or a heat race in Supercross. Like, he literally showed up for his first race last season and didn't make it past free practice.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. And he did a lot better in motocross. I think he had a top 10 or two, which was really, really good to see. Kind of a good story. Did okay in SMX, not great, but okay. He really was just he was struggling to get his raw speed back because he hasn't had a season without a major injury in the last 2 years, basically since he went pro. So I'm kind of pulling for Jet Reynolds. I want to see if he can,
Me too.
Actually stay healthy and actually race a Supercross so we can actually see where he sits. So other notables, you got Talon Hawkins on AEO Power Sports KTM. Guy used to race for Husqvarna, kind of got transferred over there. Basically, he would be a good complete 250 rider if he figured out the whoops. So we'll see if he's figured that out. That was the reason he pretty much got taken off of Husqvarna, was he got the opportunity to race the factory 250 and just couldn't figure out the whoops. So, So I think the only bench race to talk about right now, since this is the only rivalry we have confirmed matchup, is Kitchen versus Deegan. Right. I mean, that's going to be what we're watching this weekend. Apparently, between Deegan, Hymas, and Kitchen, apparently at some point, everyone amongst the other two has said that one person's cooked and whatever. Like, Deegan whipped both of them in outdoors last year and then won the SMX deal. So Deegan's sitting at the top, but these other two are coming at him. They're nipping at his heels. Obviously, we shouldn't see Hymas this weekend because he's still recovering from that knee. But we're at least going to get the Kitchen and Deegan battle that everyone's been waiting for again. So what are your guys' thoughts to wrap up the 250 class about watching this rivalry this weekend?
Deegan's sleeping him.
Okay, just out cold, left hook.
I could see Deegan sleeping him. They toss him on a couple of East Coast races too, and he sleeps them as well.
Well, and I will say, Deegan, I think if it weren't for some of that early round craziness last year to where, like, he doesn't even make it like 10 feet in the main event before Tom VL knocks everyone over.
Could be
right?
that. Yeah.
And then the next race was similar. Hammaker was Seth Hammaker and just did a similar thing with him in a heat race or whatever. Like, I think if it weren't for some early round craziness to where he lost a ton of points, I think he beats Tom Vial even with the preseason injury that he was battling, and he really wasn't healthy until after Dallas.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he
but
didn't
you can't
figure it out
place
last
the
year,
blame on
but
those
he has some
guys.
craziness. Sorry, say it again.
Because you can't place the blame on those guys. Yeah, they dumped it over and too much front brake and what it might be, but there's part of the blame still on Deegan. He could have got the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
shot. He could have had a better gate pick, and I mean, he had the first gate pick, but he could have selected a better gate and had a better
Yeah.
jump and would have cleared those.
I'm
guys.
more putting it on just the craziness of the sport in general.
Yeah, of course.
And the fact that he had a preseason injury, he was having to wear a wrist brace for a little bit. But Deegan's in an interesting position because a lot of people are saying this is the year he's got to win it, so that he can keep moving and go after those Lawrences. And in reality, it's like, no, he doesn't have to win Supercross this year. He doesn't have to, but he has to if he wants to be in the same speaking terms in 10 years from now of a Stu, a Carmichael, an eventual Jet Lawrence, a Chad Reed. If he wants to be talked about in that category, I'd say you got 2 more seasons max, but I really think this is the year that this is the determining factor on his accelerated growth. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying that he has to immediately go to 450s after if he wins this year, like just skip defending. But I think if he doesn't win this year and wins next year, then you don't go back and defend in 2027. I think you say, screw it, I'm out of here, like Christian Craig, and right off in the sunset.
Shit, I think he wins this year and then he moves on. I don't even think
he
cares to
There's
defend.
talk of that. There's some talk of that because of the fact that there might be some major changes to the speed of the 250 bikes next year. That's a very, very, very big rumor that has been passed around, but not enough evidence to get into that right now. But that is one of the things that they're thinking. Even if they're thinking if he does win, he may still just make the jump this year.
I think so.
At the end of the season, we'll see. I mean, the dude's already won it. The motocross championship. He's won SMX twice. Really, the last piece of the puzzle he needs is a Supercross championship. So we'll see how that plays out. But Carson, I mean, when you look at the lineup between him and Kitchen, you think Deegan's got him cooked?
I think so. Yeah.
Kitchen had a great year last year.
Great rider.
If it weren't for McAdoo,
man, I don't know. I think Deegan's got it.
Okay.
I think it might
fair.
be close at times, but I think it's gonna be like I think it's gonna be close. Like I don't think Deegan's gonna be just completely gapping him every race, but I think it's gonna be like consistent, just a little bit faster every week. But we'll see.
Okay. I expect some fireworks in any class that Deegan's in. So we'll see what happens there. It would be great if RJ could race West Coast too, so we could kind of see more of where RJ stacks up with him, because he's the only other guy that has a different level of crazy in him that no one else can tap into. Like that's it. But we'll see. Jordan Smith will be interesting to see as well. Last thing, guys, we have a question from one of our listeners, the homie Landry Songer. Shout out. He has a complaint that I agree with. Okay. Why do we have 2 Supercross races in Pennsylvania and only 1 in Texas? Because we used to have a Houston race as a floater every other year, and then Dallas is every year. And also Dallas used to be a Triple Crown, and it wasn't last year. I'm not sure if it is or is not this year, but usually Dallas is a Triple Crown. It's no longer a Triple Crown. So I don't understand why we have 2 locations in in Pennsylvania, but only 1 in Texas.
I might understand. And typically when they come to Houston, it's February, March. In Houston, there's the rodeo about the same time. That's the only reason I can. Well, there's 2. I mean, the rodeo being around the same time. But typically, if it's early enough, like February, then they just use the same dirt for horse shit and all the other stuff. So when they pull out the turf and they throw in the dirt, they kind of use the. We started seeing a lot less of Houston Supercross when NRG took over. I remember going every year when it was Reliant, every year without fail. I just think there's an agreement maybe, and I think it's too close with the rodeo. They don't want to. I just don't know. And I think
it hasn't been marketed well in the last
it.
couple of years. They did it either. Like 23,
Oh yeah, no, it's been marketed.
there wasn't any marketing at all.
Yeah.
We had a decent turnout, but Dallas had way more people. You had people in third deck at Dallas every year.
Well, Jerry Jones got to pay for something, right?
Yeah, you got to keep the lights on. Exactly.
Somebody else has got to get in that stadium.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah, but the Houston one, when they would do it, it would always be early February, like before Dallas.
Yeah.
So it kind of avoided that, but that's a great point. They have more of a narrower window to get that done, and that's also during the time that they're trying to get in a lot more of the West Coast baseball stadiums before baseball pops up, because they want to get into more baseball stadiums where they have those more unique track designs before they're kind of forced to go into more football stadiums for the back half of the season. So I understand the conundrum. I'm just saying I'm still pissed about it.
Yeah, well,
because I got to drive all the way down to Dallas.
I question it too. It's like,
it's a great question. It's quite unfortunate.
Most unfortunate, but
I want 17 rounds in Texas.
You know what? I think Texas should be like what the SEC was talking about and just disassociate from the entire league, make their own league. Everyone will come here.
Okay, here we go with the SEC talk. Where's the SEC?
I'm kidding. Okay, all right.
One team left playing my Buckeyes, and they're about to get.
And they're the team I hope loses too. Okay, I'm pulling for the Buckeyes for the first time in a long time this week, this Friday. So good luck. Anywho, well, gentlemen, do we have any last-minute thoughts or predictions before we sign off here? It's been a long show. For those that have stuck in, we appreciate it. But do we have any last-minute thoughts before we go to Anaheim 1 and drop the gate?
Let's do it. I'm ready to go. I know that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great season.
I know who Cole won't be cheering for, and that's anybody who's French. But I'm excited, man. I love how quick the offseason is.
Is Vince Freeze French? Is Vince Freeze French? Is there a possibility?
He's probably French.
I'm sure he's had a baguette a time or two.
He's got some ties.
I need a 23andMe on Vince Freeze right now, because that would explain a lot. No, I was kidding. But if he is French, that'd be hilarious. But I would say that's the one guy that I absolutely despise. And unfortunately, Vince Freeze will be lining up with the Moto Concepts team. So first-turn pileups are going to happen. I swear if he knocks out Mookie and Ken Roxon again in the first turn on Anaheim 1, my TV stands no chance from
calling for a lynch.
Yeah, I'm gonna use AI and have him make me a video of Vince Freeze eating a croissant. Send it over to you.
Vince Freeze is French, confirmed by AI. No, I think great show, guys. I mean, we crushed it on time. It was a lot of fun. Just can't wait for the gate to drop.
And then we'll have even more to talk about when we get back and can actually say, oh, this and this happened. Okay. So
can't wait.
For sure.
I will probably, in usual Anaheim 1 fashion, at least one of my hopes and dreams in this sport is going to get crushed at that gate drop. But it'll be beautiful. It'll be great. It'll be great.
That's why we watch it.
I'm going to pull my hair out, but it's going to be great. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you guys for hopping on. Listeners, thank you guys for hanging in there for 2.5 hours. We hope we gave you a good preview. Like I said, we just kind of skimmed over the 250s because, well, they can't make up their mind who's going where. But when we get back, we'll have that answer, and we'll have something to talk about. There's a lot to talk about with that class. And we got even more to talk about the Premier class, a lot of fireworks to talk about with that. And Anaheim 1 is going to be an insane race as usual. And we'll be here to break down the carnage next week. So for those of you that hung in there, thank you, and we'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Later.